Welcome back to another episode of the Ministry of Truth. I am your number one host on the show because I could care less about having anybody else host the show because it's mine. Mine alone. My name's on it. My face is on it. My likeness is on it. So, it's my show. For those of you that are not here, we're going to go over an island. I can't remember where it's from. Got two stories for you on it, though. One is a documentary, not documentary. This dude talks about it for about an hour. And then we're going to switch and we're going to see the local news sources from when it happened originally, because I don't really know too much about this. So we're going to learn a little bit together. This was sent to me and I did a little more digging, and then I found a second and a third and a fourth and a fifth. We'll get into that anyway. But before we do any of that, we need to do the Pledge of Allegiance. And who better to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance than our Vice President, Kamala Harris?
Join me in pledging allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the United States. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America.
Kamala. Oh, Kamala, you forgot to say flag. Oops. It's I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Not I pledge allegiance to the United States. Good job, Kamala Harris. Good job. That's why you're not the vice president. You are the vice president. That's why you will never be the president of the United States, unless you run in 2028 and America's just that fucked up they elect you. You never know. America's done some worse shit. Before we get into any video, to the main topics of today, let's get into our first music video of the day. A lot of us may know this one, but a lot of us probably already forgot. So, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, won't you be my neighbor?
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in this beauty wood, a neighborly day for beauty. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? I have always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood.
Listen, Mr. Rogers, let me see your sleeves. I know you got sleeves under there, you sniper.
With you, so let's make the most of this beautiful day. Since we're together, we might as well say, would you be mine? Could you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Won't you please? Won't you please? Please won't you be my neighbor?
Welcome back to another episode of the Ministry of Truth. Before we get into any things, we're going to talk about the insane lefties over there across the pond in a place that we really shouldn't care about, especially since 1776. So, without further ado, let's listen to what they believe on gay pride and kids and, pride parades.
At pride festivals.
Yes.
There's evidence and common opinion to say that there is nudity, partial or otherwise, kink culture, adult content at these events. Is that age appropriate for children?
I think it would be very dependent on what you're defining those terms as, but yes, kids run around naked all the time.
If someone was to expose themselves on the street to a child, should they be arrested?
Yes.
Common sense.
Good answer.
If someone at Pride Parade exposed themselves to a child, should they be arrested?
If a person that is not covered up, walks up to a child and exposes them, then yes, they should be arrested.
Right,
But if
right.
it's in a parade environment where people are expressing themselves and being their full person, and there's
Oh, it should be illegal to do that, but if it's a pride parade, it's okay. Because it's a freedom of expression to show your tallywhacker to kids.
going to be nudity, and a parent can decide whether they can take their child there.
Or
If you're
jumping
taking
on
your
a
child
bed
to an
of outer
event where you think there's going to be nudity, you're not then going to be like, oh, someone's exposed themselves to my child. Like, no, that's not going to happen.
Last but not least, Pride has developed over the last 50 years, arguably, incredibly so.
100, 50, more.
Is there any argument to say that Pride is now normalised and legitimised for certain people, certain demographics, with ulterior motives concerned specifically with children
Yep.
at these parades?
I think that people are trying to use pride as a argument for protecting children. If you're really worried about protecting children, like, taking them to a pride festival is not really like the thing that you should be
Oh,
deciding on what is protecting them or not.
Should kids be allowed at Pride festivals?
Yes.
Should kids be allowed at Pride parades?
Definitely.
Totally, 100%.
Everyone
yes.
should be allowed.
Everyone should be allowed.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Just imagine
As long as they're celebrating and not protesting.
Sure.
why can't they
Just
protest?
imagine
That sense, I think.
I've never been, for example. Just for argument's sake, say I've never
You should
been.
go, it's gonna be fun.
Okay. Okay, cool. A lot of the feedback from the culture at Parade is that there's a lot of kink culture. Is that the word? Kink culture?
Yes, that's the word.
There's nudity, whether it's partial or full. It depends on which part of the world you're in, I suppose. I don't know. Adult content. Is that age appropriate for children?
That's a very good question.
In general.
Yeah.
I think it depends on what context, right? I don't think nudity is a bad thing at all. And I don't think that exposure to certain kinks is a bad thing at all either. It's just a part of our world and a part of the conversation you need to have with your children at some point. So I think it's always
Coming from two
appropriate,
faggots will never have
depending
kids.
on the context that you're going to, provide them with.
If someone was to expose themselves to children on the street, should they be arrested?
Totally.
In general.
Absolutely.
Expose, you mean like,
During Pride, you mean?
No, on the
nudity-
street. In general. Any
Well,
part of the world, any country. Whatever the
I-
law is.
That's a very tricky question
Yeah, it
because
is
it depends on their mental state. If they're
Literally
mentally
not tricky at
unstable
all.
and they're not aware of what they're doing,
Which they probably would be if they were doing that, right?
well, maybe not.
Okay.
What if they're just walking down the street nude?
Mm.
They're exposing themselves to children, but if
Sure.
they're unwell, then they might not necessarily.
Yeah, if they're walking down the street nude, they get arrested. If they're not in a pride parade, they totally get arrested. Man, you get arrested for whipping your dick out to take a piss behind a bus stop for fucking sexual assault. I had a buddy. He wasn't a buddy. He was in my company. He had to register as a sex offender. Hang on.
They shouldn't get arrested. They should be taken care of in a different way.
What are your thoughts?
well,
Context.
I think,
It's all in context.
yeah, I think it all really depends on context. Obviously, if you go to like nudity beach with your child and you're like, you're teaching a child to be like comfortable in your body, and that's the place to do it, then obviously not. If it's in the context of like day-to-day life on the streets, then questionable, definitely questionable. And I think, I wouldn't want my child to, like, if I would not be ready to like expose my child to
Must be
that, I
from
would
Sweden.
not be happy with it. And I think in that context, on the streets, people should be arrested.
Okay, so same question at Pride. If anyone at Pride was to adult performer, or I don't know how it works, but in terms of someone who's actually not a participant of Pride, but I don't know how it works, but if someone was at Pride and they expose themselves, should they be arrested?
What do you mean by non-participant?
If is there a procession or something like that, a performer, if anyone or anyone,
I perform which kind
Anyone.
of performance though? There can be so many.
I'm not
different
sure I
performances.
understand the question.
any performers, if
And-
anyone exposed themselves to a child at a parade, at a
When you
Pride
say
parade,
expose themselves to a child, do you mean a child just happens to see them nude, or you mean goes up to the child, invites them to look at them nude? Because
Both.
that's a very different.
either you can give an answer for both.
No, it's a kid.
Either.
Well, my perception to nudity is normal. I grew up with the concept of there's nothing wrong with being nude. Coming from a European family that were very open, so I think if you just so happen to be nude, it's a different story than if you go up and you try to expose yourself in a sexual way, right?
But if a man, whatever, was, or female, was to expose deliberately in front of, targeted, if I'm hearing that right,
Exactly.
that would be a different.
Yeah, I would feel like that's a different context.
Would they need to be arrested if they did that?
That is not up to me. That is up to the law, and the laws
He's
are
asking your
different.
opinion.
And then laws often don't apply. Laws are often not. There's no, what's the word I'm looking for? Laws are very, this equals this, right? But there is context, again, in everything. So whether they should get arrested in that scenario, again, there should be many decisions involved.
Because people keep talking about gays exposing themselves, gay people, but at the same time, people don't talk enough about gay people actually being targeted by lots of people that are super aggressive.
Should kids be allowed at pride parades?
Yes.
I knew you'd say that.
Why?
Because children also should see that there's diversity. Like,
That's
if
not
you ask me about
diversity.
this, I'm doing my thesis on teaching kids about pride. So yeah, I feel
Pride
like
is
they should know
not
everything about
diversity.
it.
So at these prides, so obviously we take both sides of the argument into play, and we see a lot of images.
Listen, I got nothing against gay people, right? Get that straight. I may say faggot a lot, but it's a fucking word. But these people are fucking insane. You can have your pride parades. I don't give a fuck. Make it like every other goddamn parade. You don't see the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade going down the fucking street with fucking tallywhackers and boobs hanging out, do you? Because it's not acceptable. All these other parades across the country. Hell, the ones I used to march in. We didn't have any nude people in it. It was a fucking parade. You can show your pride all you want. But keep it clean until you get to your own house.
Images of, you'll have seen this as well, scantily clad men and women,
Yes.
and a lot of nudity,
Yes.
and a lot of exposure, kink culture as well, a lot of adult culture. So is that an appropriate place for kids to be in at these pride parades?
I think it is. It is. I think we're trying to figure out what the parade should be. So I feel like it should fight for our rights, and it should also show things that kids can see. And I feel like there should be a third part for maybe the more adult.
Fight for rights, okay. Hey Siri, what rights do gay people not have in England? You're not gonna answer? Hey Siri. Oh, now you're playing dumb. Hey Siri. What? Oh, it's because your fucking ass is on mute. So stupid.
Things. Yeah, I feel like if the law tells you not to get naked any day of the year, then don't get naked on Pride Day. But
There you go. It says don't get naked. But the motherfuckers are doing it. And getting away with it.
I think that's interesting. So I think that's my question. What's the difference between a grown man like myself exposing myself to a child, for example, and pride festivals? Based on what we've just explained, what's the difference? Should they be arrested?
No.
They shouldn't.
Why not?
No, because I mean, I don't know. Maybe I haven't seen all of the pride parades, but I've never seen full nudity.
Sure.
You can see people dressed with not a lot of clothes, but
No,
the things that
there's-
have to be covered, I've always seen them covered. So you go to the beach and you see the people almost naked. So to me, it's the same because I've never seen anyone fully naked. If people get fully
I
naked,
go to the beach and they're not fully naked. Well, anyway, that's besides the point. But the pride parade, there's videos and videos and videos where you see that their fucking junk is right out there. And it's always a guy who's pretending to be a woman. Hello, Dominique. How are you, ma'am?
I don't know about that, but I haven't seen it.
So you're saying, sorry, this is last question. This is a key part of the conversation. So you're saying that as long as it's not full nudity at pride parades, but we've already agreed that there is scantily clad kink culture. There is clearly a lot of flesh on display at family friendly, as branded as family friendly events. If I'm not incorrect there, is there any difference between that and children experiencing that, and a man choosing to flash or expose himself to.
I mean, this is gay. Hey, where the fuck did my camera go? Oh, when I put it up, it disappears. All right, all right.
Children, is there any difference?
Yeah, there is a big difference to me. In my opinion, there's a huge difference. Like,
What is it?
one thing is you see somebody, like, you can maybe expect a bit more nudity. The same way you'd expect something on, like, I don't know, another festival, you'd
This bitch is
expect
German
certain
anyway.
things. You can expect someone to
What's up,
maybe wear
A-Cup?
less clothes on a pride parade. But you as a parent or as a family member should be the one who tells the difference. But I don't think, I think they're two different.
Me as a parent, if I just happen to be walking down the street and somebody exposes themselves to my kids, even if they're adults at that point, I'm still allowed to punch them in the mouth, right?
Different debates, and mixing them is kind of could like be close
Hey,
to
lady, let's
homophobia.
end this
So
for a
I don't
moment.
want to put them together.
What's the debate when you say the two different debates? So one debate is child safety. When you say there's two debates, which what are the
No,
two
one
debates?
debate is whether people should be getting naked anywhere, and then there's pride. Like for pride, there's a certain context and a certain thing that's happening, and things that happen surrounding it. And maybe somebody, to show their pride, they need to wear less clothes one day. That's one thing, and I feel like on Pride Day, it's
All right, listen. In April, or is it May? In May, I'm going to show my island pride. All I'm going to wear for the entire month of May is a loincloth. And I'm going to carry a hatchet so I can put both of them together. And that's in memory, right?
there's a parade and you know that's going to happen. But any day of the year,
Guys aren't even doing it
don't
right.
get naked in front of
Jesus
a kid.
Christ,
But also,
dude,
what I
let's
said
come to it.
earlier,
What's the difference? That's the interesting point I think that people want to know about is what's to convince people of this. What's the difference?
I don't think
Not
there's-
my opinion, just what's the
Yeah,
difference?
no, because like you don't get fully naked on Pride.
No, but it's about I'm not saying that anyone's
See?
getting.
No
I
thumb.
hope not. I hope not. But in the context of it being family friendly, I think that's the context here. I mean, I presume
But-
you've been to pride
Yeah,
festivals.
and anything. I mean,
Oh, her brain broke.
I think it's this. It's the parents
He's
that
done.
have to choose, and I don't think it's not a family event. And I feel like
Oh,
sexualizing the thing, like making the kids think that's sexual, is even worse. Like if you see somebody naked or not fully clothed, that's fine. But
well, this
like,
is
I
your.
do think there's a difference, and if people don't want to see it, they're not gonna see it. But there is a difference, very clear, whether you're showing your pride and expressing who you are, or just like getting naked and making it sexual when it shouldn't be.
Is it appropriate for kids to attend Pride Festival, Pride Parade?
Yes, I think it is because it's 2023 now. Things are changing.
2024.
I know a lot of people have issues with that sort of community in this day and age, but I just don't think you should try and hide your children from it. I think you should be very open to them knowing about what's going on. They're going to see it regardless,
Right,
and I
fuck
think
these
it's
fucking
about
retarded
embracing.
people that want kids
people-
to go to pride parades and
No matter how
groom
evil
them
or
to I don't know do
Today we're
shit
going to be
like.
talking about an
Wait, did I rewind? No, do shit like groom them, let them know, hey, it's okay at this very very young age. Fuck it, let's do stuff. And why is that important? Because it makes it easier to do shit like what we're going to talk about. And then when you try to expose the people, somehow, you commit suicide.
Argentinian model who was murdered after finding out the dark truth about the entertainment industry in her home country of Argentina. Natasha Jate was born on August 13, 1977 in Buenos Aires, Argentina. In a 2008 interview with Terra magazine, Natasha Jate recalled having discovered her sexuality at the age of 16, growing up with Jewish parents and attending Golda Meir Jewish School, a foundation for her early work as a model for magazines, and with Coco Silly and Daniel Arrayo's in Compatriots on Canal 7. After the economic situation of the De La Rua in Argentina in 1999, she relocated to Madrid, Spain with only $10 with a goal to be on television. Natasha joined the cast of Gran Hermano, the Spanish Big Brother franchise, and was accepted as a reserved housemate on the 6th season, as she had not finished her immigration paperwork yet. But thanks to one of the other housemates vacating on the first day, Natasha was able to enter the house. She stayed on the program until the final vote and ended up in 3rd place. She was both the first foreign contestant and the first reserve to get that far. At the end of the program, she continued her work in several areas. She worked as a panelist at Chronicas Marcianas, The Martian Chronicles, with journalist Javier Sarda. She became the host of Sexual Office.
The guy wants to be so bad that he took part of my name. Fucking Javier's. Guys are wannabes.
A program on the Playboy TV network. She hosted the radio program Esclava del Agujero, Slave of Your Hole, on 99.1 Loca FM. She also went on to pose for the magazines Interview, Playboy, Hombre, and Paparazzi. In 2007, she returned to Argentina to sponsor the International Festival of Erotic Cinema of Buenos Aires, along with Dunia Montenegro, Sonia Baby, and Nacho Vidal. She hosted the TV program Sexo Seguro, Safe Sex, on Playboy TV, acted in her first theater play in 2008 called Caliente, participated in an Argentinian dance competition, and eventually hosted Natasha Ignites Your Senses on America TV. Additionally, during this time, she worked as a VIP escort and worker. Between 2005 and 2007, Natasha was married to actor Adrian Yasp, with whom she had her son, Valentino. She also had a daughter, Antonella. In 2017, Natasha was accused of extortion charges in which she allegedly blackmailed sports journalist and former football player Diego Latour for $350,000. She accused Diego of having sex with other people, but during the controversy, it was revealed that Diego, who was married, did indeed have an extramarital affair. In 2019, Natasha claimed that director Pablo Jotic and Maximiliano Giusto drugged and sexually assaulted her. She attended a judicial hearing in the related case, and this was her last public appearance. But things were about to get so much darker. In early 2018, Natasha alleged on public television that a Central Intelligence Agency in Argentina had been paying her to follow high-profile Argentinians under suspicion of engaging in. One of the main claims was that Club Atlético Independiente was sexually abusing minors, where supposedly one of the players denounced 4 phone numbers that were allegedly used to pay children to have sex with adults. The Club Atlético Independiente was a sports and educational entity in the city of Avellaneda, located in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and founded in 1905. Their massive stadium, the Libertadores de America Ricardo Enrique Bocchini Stadium, has a capacity to hold 49,592 people. Men's soccer was the most prominent sport played there, and those teams participated in the first division of Argentina, although they also had teams at the amateur and semi-professional levels. Richard Bocchini was recognized as the club's greatest idol, spending his entire career at Independiente over 19 seasons between 1972 and 1991. The club had 5 major teams: El Rojo, Independiente de America, Red Devils, King of Cups, and National Pride. It was one of the most renowned clubs in Argentina, achieving a record 7 times, 16 leagues, and 10 national cups. Yet, with a quick search online, none of the official pages with information about the club seem to mention the or child abuse
of course
that has
not
been historically linked to this institution. In June of 2018, a Clarin article by Amelia Vexler detailed accounts of this predator ring case in the lower divisions of Independiente youth. 9 victims between ages 10 and 16 testified in this case, claiming that they were assaulted. They also went on to say that their abusers had contacted them through social media, and after inviting them to meetings, they offered to perform oral on them for money, offering 200 pence, and even more for anal. It was reported that many of these victims, these minors, ended up contracting HIV from their abusers. One of the main suspects charged was referee Martin Bustos. Martin's previous defense lawyer was actually charged himself for helping Martin cover up his predator crimes. Martin's lawyer...
I guess y'all didn't catch that. He was fucking these minors, knowing he's HIV positive. Not only fucked up their minds, he's going to destroy them physically as well.
Fact, destroyed Martin's cell phone in order to delete WhatsApp chats and videos of the minors, and was thought and found to be complicit in this. Now, Natasha Jate, who we were talking about at the very beginning, was supposed to testify, but ended up being excused and replaced from this whole thing by her brother. At the beginning of 2019, Natasha Jate also spoke with reporter Mercedes Nincy on the Chiqui program about the predator problem in Argentina and told her of her experience and information that she knew about these rings. She also went on during this interview to ask Mercedes if she was friends with Gustavo Vera, saying, he is a case that they gave me to investigate. He ran brothels, he hung out with prostitutes. But the journalist recriminated. It is not true. He denounced trafficking for years. His conduct is impeccable. The journalist,
Did you see that?
not true. He denounced trafficking for years.
He worked at an NGO, non-government organization. The NGOs are the ones that are helping all the illegals get in the country, and then somehow they disappear with the tune of 375,000 children.
His conduct is impeccable. The journalist seemed to want to defend the predators on national TV. In the same interview, Natasha went on to say that 5 of the second boys who testified against the referee said that he had paid them 1,000 pesos. And she also maintained that a company asked her to investigate a cable signal driver, saying this man walked around at night and it was confirmed that he was a He picked up children from the street and spent a year working in the Recoleta area. Natasha claimed that castings for Combate and Big Brother were not what they appeared to be, and that Cohen Arazi also participated in running a brothel with important VIP clients. Additionally, during this interview, she asked Mercedes Nincy if she was involved herself in trafficking and as she, for some reason, fearlessly and devoutly defended celebrities like Vera and others. Mercedes Nincy and sports author Gustavo Grabia criticized Natasha for making these unsubstantiated, allegedly, allegations on television. But this all leads
Go
to the
figure, celebrities saying it's not happening.
Noche de Mirtha interview. In an interview on La Noche de Mirtha in 2018, Natasha Jate went public with her claims regarding the trafficking that was going on at the athletic club and inside of other infamous organizations in Argentina. She said that those phone numbers uncovered in the Club Atletico case, phone numbers that were used to pay children to have with adults, belonged to journalists and politicians and celebrities, and she named several of them by name. Additionally, during this interview with Natasha on television, another reporter indicated that this club had been under investigation since 2012. She also alleged that when she went to the Newell Athletic Club with her 12-year-old son in 1990, she used to go to the pre-game meetings, and the children would often come out crying. She later found out from a related person that the children were being forced to engage in acts in exchange for their cleats that they would use to play in the games. She stated that she went to go speak to the coach to ask him about this abuse, and that when she told him the allegations, he just looked at her and said to her partner at the time, "If I don't get to sleep with your wife, Natasha, I will consider you injured." Natasha went on to claim that the coach of this team, Mr. Lopez, would accept money in exchange for setting up adults with children, and that some of the players' parents would pay the coach himself so that he could use the children, and he would then allow the children to play in the games. Natasha even alleged that Pope Francis had a close friend in the Predator network that she had been asked by an intelligence agency to follow for a year. She also brought up the case of Grassi Bergoglio, another priest in Argentina who was widely known for his abuse scandal with a 13-year-old boy. Natasha claimed that the Pope saved that priest before saying that this was the same system, the same Predator network that was working within the athletic clubs in Argentina. One of the other reporters on the show then mentioned that just the day before, a judge authorized the opening of the safety box in the apartment of the people accused in the abuse case. And inside of that box, they had found information regarding this Predator network, a network that had carried out many, countless crimes against children. Natasha then went on about Cohen Arazi, saying that he would scout kids out with another 12-year-old kid that was helping him, named Brian. Brian would go out and act like he would be a friend to these other children, slowly recruiting them and brainwashing them until eventually he would bring them to the slums, where these children were then paid by that referee, Martin Bustos, 200 for oral or 1,000 pesos for carnal. Martin Bustos was that referee who was initially accused, who had HIV.
The 12-year-old. Think back to that fucking chomo from Australia that got charged with murder and shit in Philippines. He had a young female going out recruiting the women. And then you look at Jesleen Maxwell, She was there recruiting young women. And there's always somebody. And when you look at like the movie The Sound of Freedom, even you see a female there doing the same shit. Where are these fucking handlers coming from? What possesses them to fucking even want to do this?
And was actively passing it on to children. Also accused was political journalist Juan Cruz. He was accused of working with Cohen Arazi to run this powerful network and was obviously accused of being a predator himself. Natasha then ended her interview with a powerful statement, saying that the kids that are being abused have neither the resources to complain or the ability to reach out to anyone. They had nothing. They were alone. These children were orphans who had no money and were deeply desperate. And that's how these creeps were able to hook and reel them into their shadowy network of abuse. After this interview, many other journalists in the Argentinian media questioned Natasha and disregarded her claims. They said basically that she was going crazy and to just ignore her. But things weren't going well for Natasha. Following her interview on that show where she attempted to expose this predator network to the masses in Argentina, the federal police raided her house on April 11th, 2018, searching for all of the evidence and videos she claimed to have on all the information she reported. Like we said, during that interview, Natasha claimed that she had evidence of this ring, videos of these VIP members engaging in these acts with minors. She had photographic video proof. She said she had been tasked to do this.
Yo, if I had that kind of information and people knew where I lived, you think I'm going to store that shit in my house or in my car? Fuck no. I'm going to store it in the locker that's three blocks over under the name George Lopez.
By an intelligence agency to keep tabs on these people, but hearing this, the feds didn't like that. So they raided her home. And at about the exact same time that Natasha's home was being raided, she made a series of tweets and public accusations involving the April 2018 child ring that was smashed at those major Argentinian football clubs, including the Independiente and the River Plate. Natasha's most notable tweet from this string of tweets warned her followers that she did not intend to kill herself, saying, quote, "Notice, I am not going to kill myself. I am not going to overdose on coke and drown in a bathtub. I am not going to shoot myself in the head. So if that happens, no, I didn't do it. Save this tweet." Those would be some eerily prophetic final words. Less than a year later, on February 23rd, 2019, Natasha was found dead, naked in a bed at a party hall in Benavides, Tigre, on the outskirts of Buenos Aires. Preliminary autopsy results suggested that what had killed Natasha was a pulmonary edema, or a blood clot inside of her lungs. Other reports claimed it was a stroke caused by cocaine and alcohol use. Natasha's brother believed and stated at the time that he believed she was given a hot dose with her drink in order to incapacitate her. And then afterwards, cocaine was manually implanted in her nostrils. It was also suggested that Natasha had overdosed, but because forensics were unable to obtain a proper urine sample from her, the results for cocaine were negative. It was also noted that Natasha's body was free of semen, dismissing claims that were circulating at the time that she had been sexually abused herself before her death. The initial police reports also stated that there seemed to be no signs of violence against Natasha before she died, but her lawyers detected inconsistencies and believed, obviously, that Natasha had been killed. Many assumed that Natasha had been killed because she was about to go public with even more damaging information regarding that predator ring that she first brought to national.
Think about that. Her. I don't know if he gets into it. Chris Cornell, Chester Bennington, Avicii. Bro. You can't tell me that that's not a coincidence.
National attention the year prior in 2018. I do not believe that her supposed was because of previous accusations she made. I believe it is because she wanted to reveal something else, something new. Lawyer Alejandro Cipolla told the Todas las Tardes lifestyle program. People in the country were shocked by this. Natasha had just got on the news the year before telling everybody, warning people that these highly regarded public officials, public figures in the entertainment industry, in the sports world, were running a VIP predator ring for the elite, for the wealthy. She made all these accusations. She laid them out in public on these public news programs. Then she tweeted that she wasn't going to end her own life. And then she ended up dead less than a year later. So people were, of course, naturally suspicious. And Natasha's brother, Ulysses, agreed, according to the statements that he made to various media outlets during the week after Natasha's death, saying that, quote, she had reported very sensitive issues in cases about. She handed over a drive with information that has not yet been analyzed. We are going to now follow her will, which is to explore the evidence she provided. End quote. Cipolla, the family's lawyer, claimed that this wasn't the first time that Natasha had gone to the Xanadu room with the aim of closing her employment contract, but argued that she should have had this meeting before since she was dealing with the cause of the abuse, but she preferred not to leave it for the weekend. So according to the police and the official story, Natasha had attended a party at this place where she was found dead called the Xanadu Room, which was a local party house, a club of sorts, with a friend. And that after the party was over, she was found dead. Now that's the official story, that Natasha had died of some sort of an overdose. But all of Natasha's friends and family said that she was not on drugs, that she wasn't using any substances at the time that she died, and that it would have been virtually impossible to even imagine her taking so many drugs that she would OD. On February 27, 2019, Argentinian businessman and producer Raul Velastiki was arrested for false testimony regarding Natasha Jate's death, having lied to the authorities about the circumstances of how Natasha died. But in 2023, prosecutors investigating the case concluded that there was no evidence of any third-party involvement. That's right, just last year, the investigators in Argentina put a stamp on the cover-up and stated Natasha OD'd, there was no one else involved, this was just a freak accident. But we have to talk about the inconsistencies. It's believed that at least 5 people were with Natasha Jate on the night that she died. Velasquez, Rigoni's friend Gaspar Esteba Fenolia, an electrician Gustavo Andres Bartolin, and a 19-year-old, Luana Michaela Monsalvo, who was a local prostitute. 3 of these individuals supposedly fled the scene before the police arrived that morning, and local media reported initially that there was evidence of drug use found at the scene of Natasha's death. Champagne, LSD, and cocaine. But like I just said, those closest to Natasha insisted that she was no longer consuming drugs and was clean, and that particularly she had stopped doing cocaine a while ago. Reports said that they found a sample of a white powder inside of Natasha's nasal passages. News outlets also reported that Natasha's autopsy showed that she suffered multiple organ failure with no signs of violence. But Natasha's brother has consistently claimed that she wouldn't have taken any drugs, as they would have reacted to the medication that she had just started taking shortly before her death. There were photographs of Natasha's naked body that were posted shortly after her death, but they were hastily deleted offline. There was also supposedly a police officer who was investigating Natasha's case, who was captured in one of these photos of her body in the background in a mirror. But we still don't know who that person officially in the photograph is or was. Obviously, the investigators assigned to Natasha's death examined the contents of the tablet that was present in the room that she died in. Natasha's own daughter tried to open up her mother's tablet the day after her death, but found that the password that she knew her mother had been using for years had changed. She suddenly didn't know what it was.
Strange.
It ended up taking investigators over 4 years and 95,000 attempts to unlock Natasha's tablet, but they finally did just a year or 2 ago. When they did unlock it, 100 gigabytes of information were obtained. The family found on the tablet a conversation between Natasha and her friend Rigoni, in which Natasha informed him that she was going to be late the night that she died and to order food for her at the party hall. Rigoni replied to Natasha saying that sushi was on the way, and in a third-party conversation, he explained that there was cocaine on site. Bianchi, the family lawyer, later stated that the Jate family and legal team weren't even allowed to thoroughly examine the iPad belonging to Natasha themselves, but only received a partial report of what they found on the iPad from the local authorities. Natasha's brother
I really
also
think they're
claimed
going to be
that
like,
the police
oh
didn't-
shit, we found some bad stuff, some bad people. We're going to tell you what's on it, right? Right. You're the government. You're the law enforcement. And you're trying to cover up. You guys would never lie. Never, ever. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing right now.
didn't attempt to preserve the crime scene at all. They were letting anybody wander in there and do whatever they wanted to the evidence. In February of 2024, this year, Natasha's brother again came forward publicly to say that he thought Natasha had been involved with AFI, Argentina's intelligence services. He went on to say in an interview with the Buenos Aires Times that, "I can't tell you everything I know because I don't know what could happen. That's all I can tell you. I am not afraid of the AFI. It is not easy to get involved with spies because many of us know how people who get involved with spies end up." Now, another point of speculation is the final tweet that Natasha tweeted before she died, which read, "I'm coming. I have a work meeting." Puts on the garter belt. Now, something else bizarre that happened here was that right after Natasha made those initial public allegations about those powerful people being involved in that predator ring, her personal lawyer called her and told her that she needed to come down to the courthouse to attend court for a case related to domestic violence. It was important, he told her. You need to rush here and get here as soon as possible. When she got to the courthouse at that time, the prosecutor of the town and two other women that were present that still have not been identified allegedly showed Natasha the TV program during which she had accused those important people from the media and attempted to scare her, to make her take back publicly what she had stated. Natasha had been tricked and she felt intimidated, and immediately upon seeing this ran out and fired her lawyer. But local news channels claimed that she was escaping court without giving proof. Another local TV reporter, a man named Jorge Rial, actually ended up leaking the official court papers dealing with this case that the prosecutors were attempting to file, a paper that Natasha never signed at the same moment that she left the courtroom. So how did this guy, this random news reporter, get access to this document? It doesn't make any sense. Natasha was invited.
That's weird, because a video I'm going to do tomorrow talks about a reporter somehow walking around Jalalabad, whatever the fucking dude's name, the New Orleans guy, inside his house after the FBI raid. Less than 24 hours. How was she able to get in there and walk around? How was the investigation already completed by then? That doesn't make sense.
There, she was asked to sign these papers saying that she had lied about everything. She fled the courtroom, and almost immediately a TV reporter leaked this official paper, which was attempting to show that Natasha was lying. I don't know, none of this really makes sense. It was also reported on a thread on Reddit from late 2019 that the coroner who did Natasha's autopsy, quote, sounded like he was given bad talking points in the media, sounding like he had a lack of medical knowledge, as post-mortem toxicology testing is usually performed with multiple samples of urine, blood, and tissues, end quote. But it's not like any of this mattered anyways, because the coroner himself supposedly overdosed shortly after completing Natasha's autopsy.
Oh, that's good.
But now we get into the connected persons. So Natasha was a very famous, high-profile celebrity figure in Argentina. She had just gone on live television and attempted to expose a predator ring operating in the upper echelons of Argentinian society. Then shortly afterwards, Natasha's home is raided for unknown reasons to this day. It's not known what's taken out of Natasha's home. It's not known at all what exactly that raid was performed for. Natasha tweets out that she's not going to hurt herself. She has no plans on going anywhere. She wants to expose this stuff. Supposedly, according to Natasha's friends and family, she plans on releasing something huge dealing with this predator network, and then she dies, supposedly of an OD, even though all of the friends and family in Natasha's life say that she wasn't touching any substances at the time that she passed. Then you have the inconsistencies in the autopsy reports, the bizarre court case that it was discovered had been brought supposedly against Natasha before she died, and the fact that the coroner himself died shortly after completing Natasha's autopsy, so further questions couldn't be asked of him. But who was connected to this supposed ring? Well, we have to start out with Raul Valestiki. Raul allegedly let Natasha Jate into the Xanadu Club events facility in Tigre on the night of her death to discuss a supposed business deal with the Xanadu events facility's owner, Gonzalo Rigoni. Now, Gonzalo allegedly wanted to hire Natasha Jate for a series of events that he wanted to put on at the events facility. And it should be noted that this events facility had bedrooms on property for people who wanted to spend the night there. Sources in the police in that town stated that Raul and Rigoni made a call to 911 saying that Natasha had fainted in their bedroom and was lying on the bed face up. And EMTs confirmed that Natasha was dead on arrival when they finally got to the scene. But it was found that Raul Valestiki had lied to investigators on 3 separate occasions about the circumstances surrounding Natasha's death at the facility. Specifically, Raul claimed that he had found Natasha's mobile phone in her car outside, when in fact, security footage that was recovered showed Raul taking the phone from the room where Natasha was found dead and storing it in his backpack. It's unknown if he manipulated the phone or did something to it before the police eventually got access to it. So that's a really weird thing to lie about. You said that you found Natasha's phone out in her car, when in fact security camera footage captures you retrieving the phone from the room where the woman died and placing it in your backpack. So you knew exactly where the phone was, but what were you doing with the phone, and what were you worried was on the phone in the first place? Raul also claimed that he hadn't seen anybody at the facility that evening consuming drugs, but later on would go along with the narrative that Natasha had died from a cocaine overdose. And finally, Raul told authorities at the time that he hadn't touched or modified anything in the potential crime scene where Natasha's body was found. But it was found later on that Raul had removed a towel from the crime scene, which he had then used to cover Natasha Jate's phone before placing it in his backpack. Now, those are 3 lies that he told the authorities in a suspicious death, but he was acquitted of all charges against him in August of 2020. Then there's Ines Zorreguieta. Ines was Queen Maxima of the Netherlands' sister, so Ines was a powerful woman. She worked as a researcher for the United Nations and for Argentina's Ministry of Social Development. Ines's father was Jorge Zorreguieta, who died in 2017 and served as the Secretary of Agriculture under General Jorge Rafael Videla during Argentina's last civil military dictatorship, which ended in 1983. Ines Zorreguieta cleaned and made inventory of her father's properties and found what appeared to be a video gallery and blackmail vault. According to Ines, the items that she found inside of this blackmail video gallery vault contained films that would expose several huge political figures from the 1970s and 1980s being women and children on video recordings. Now, Natasha supposedly knew about the existence of these films prior to
Every ring that they found has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of recordings. I know I was going to go somewhere with this, but I can't remember what it was. But god damn.
to her alleging that that ring existed in that 2018 interview. And she had been in contact with and was friends with Ines, who had allegedly been providing her with information about the inner workings of this predator ring.
If they have all these videos for blackmail use, dude, what happens when, like, you can't use it anymore? Matter of fact, why hold it? What are you blackmailing them for?
But Ines was found dead in her home in Buenos Aires at age 33. Interestingly, investigators ruled her death as a self-unaliving, but some suspect foul play, obviously, and consider Ines as another person that was silenced due to her knowledge of Argentina's large VIP predator ring. Bizarre. So this is a woman from a very powerful family who discovered that her own father had a blackmail vault of some of the most disturbing materials possible. Materials that showed VIP members of society, people that were in politics, celebrities, media members, doing things to women and children on video and in photographs. But she died, and none of those materials ever manifested to the public, beyond the accusations that she made that were recorded. Then you've also got the DJ Avicii. Avicii was a Swedish DJ who died on April 20th, 2018 at the age of 28 near Muscat, Oman. Avicii's cause of death was, once again, as you probably know, ruled a self-unaliving. But allegedly, Avicii was working to expose the music industry and a worldwide VIP predator ring that he had discovered a few years prior. Avicii, before his death, supposedly, according to some sources, had created a video that attempted to expose some child traffickers that he had come across in his time spent working in the music industry. Avicii was supposedly very good friends with Natasha, and like her, his death was found to be suspicious, but was ultimately ruled as a self-unaliving. There's also Artyom Reshetnyak, a Ukrainian investigator who was interviewed by Natasha Jate and provided her with a plethora of information regarding Gustavo Vera, a man that Natasha ended up accusing of having a part in the VIP ring, and some other information that's listed below. So, according to Artyom, he had lived in Argentina and was engaged to a known escort named Lucia, who was originally from Uruguay. Apparently, they had been together for 3 years. According to Artyom, he ran a blog from summer 2013 to fall of 2017, where he publicly denounced the massive predator and trafficking network that was ran by Gustavo Vera. And Artyom conducted his own investigation in order to gather as much information as he could about this network. He told Natasha that an official came to his home where he lived with Lucia and gave him a warning. His girlfriend had to stop promoting herself as a prostitute. These orders came directly from Gustavo Vera himself, and if he didn't stop talking about Gustavo online, he would be killed. Artyom didn't share the name of the officer who paid him a visit. He also wrote an article about how the media gives a false impression on the nature of human and instead focuses on the adult female victims and barely ever mentions the children and male victims that are also involved. Artyom claimed in this post that homo and slavery was more common than the slavery of adult women. He also agreed with Natasha when she said that the La Alameda organization promised on the surface to help victims working in poor conditions in illegal sweatshops, but instead took advantage of them. Artyom said he was contacted by an informant whose identity he kept confidential, and this informant divulged information on the criminal activities of this massive organization, activities which involved trafficking and blackmail. Artyom started working with Martes Rojos, a Latino organization dedicated to ending trafficking in the most vulnerable neighborhoods. Now, Natasha, before her death, claimed that in talking to Artyom, his reporting confirmed everything she had been working on in the shadows, especially the fact that this organization, La Alameda, subjugated the very people that they claimed that they were protecting. Artyom agreed and said that Gustavo Vera managed this entire network and that he was directly involved in its operation. But who was Gustavo Vera? Well, Gustavo Vera was a very good friend of Pope Francis.
Oh, that's good.
And he was accused of running this predator network by Natasha and Artyom.
Pope
According to
Francis.
Natasha, she was tasked to investigate Gustavo first, followed him for over a year, and collected ample video and photographic evidence that, if released, would prove his involvement in this predator network. She also conducted interviews with prostitutes that allegedly proved that Gustavo was involved in the of prostitutes and the management of brothels in Argentina. Natasha reported on a time in which she observed him with a 17-year-old boy and claimed that he used his organization, this predator network, to target the weak, poor children in Argentina that no one listened to or seemed to care about. Natasha also went on to claim that Gustavo Vera secretly filmed the people that used his brothels and that Pope Francis had saved him from prosecution. Natasha also went on to claim that Pope Francis had allegedly saved many priests from prosecution or scandals and had stepped in to intervene in these legal matters himself. Allegedly, those who had spoken out against Gustavo Vera retracted their statements due to being intimidated by Pope Francis himself. During an interview with an organization called Complicit Clergy, Natasha stated that Gustavo Vera used his organization, La Alameda, to shut down competition against his trafficking network, intimidating those handing out pamphlets on the streets, promoting his competitors, and replacing them with workers that would hand out his own. Natasha also stated that she had received information from various prostitutes working in Argentina that they had been forcibly at a cost of 200 to 500 pesos, all under the direction and powers of Mr. Gustavo Vera. And Natasha died just 2 weeks before she was supposed to give evidence in a case that was being brought against Gustavo Vera. That evidence was never seen, and it was never presented by Natasha because she was dead. There's also Julio Grassi. In December of 1993, Julio Grassi founded a foundation for children in need, which assisted, according to them, over 6,000 boys and girls in 21 cities across the country of Argentina. But in 2000, 7 years later, a prosecutor opened up a case against Julio Grassi, stemming from some anonymous letters that this prosecutor had received that alleged that Julio Grassi was abusing and molesting many of the children that he was supposedly helping that were involved with his foundation. and suddenly were disregarded, and the case was archived and never followed up on. In October of 2002, a local news station presented more proof, more evidence, stating that Julio Grassi had maintained a sexual relationship with a 15-year-old boy against the boy's will. But still, nothing happened to Julio, and he was allowed to run this organization, directly putting him into contact with thousands of children. In June of 2006, a 17-year-old boy came forward and stated that Julio Grassi had abused him repeatedly between the years 1998 and 2003. And after this 17-year-old boy came out, 5 other minors came forward and stated that between the ages of 11 and 17, they had all been assaulted by Julio Grassi and forced to take part in these relationships, where he would repeatedly assault them time and time again. Now, Pope Francis himself in 2010 commissioned a 4-volume, 2,000-page forensic study of that legal case, where these victims came forward and blamed Julio of repeated abuse, but Pope Francis's investigation concluded that Julio Grassi was innocent, that his victims had been lying, and that this whole case should never have gone to trial in the first place. Even though there were multiple victims claiming that Julio Grassi was a disturbed pedophile ringleader, he was never convicted of anything officially. There's also Carlos Pagni, who was a journalist accused of being a pedophile and an abuser by Natasha Jait. Now, Natasha had used these abusers' initials when she released this information, and that's what's led to some people thinking that Carlos Pagni was the man that Natasha was insinuating was a part of this network, but some reports believe that this person that Natasha was referring to was actually a man named Carlos Perez. Now, in the media, people thought that this CP was Carlos Pagni, but Natasha allegedly came forward to those who knew her and came out correcting people, stating that it wasn't Carlos Pagni. The person she was talking about was a man named Carlos Perez. Natasha allegedly had been following Carlos for a full year as well, just like some of the other targets that she had been marked to follow. And Natasha claimed that Carlos was one of the members of this VIP predator network that operated across Argentina. Supposedly, Carlos was the president of an agency of communications in Argentina who directed film and music videos and worked in proximity with actors that were underage. There's also Cohen Arazi, the PR officer and publicist of the Independent Soccer League that we talked about at the beginning. Cohen was accused by Natasha of being involved with this predator network. Supposedly, Cohen admitted to Natasha to paying for but it was never with a minor. And if it was, he didn't know. Basically saying, yeah, he had done some things, but if it was with a younger child, he didn't know that it was. He hadn't checked their ID, which is a disgusting answer to an allegation like that. There was also reality TV star Francisco Delgado, who was once again accused by Natasha as being involved in this VIP ring. Francisco rose to fame after competing on the 8th season of Big Brother. He went on to win the entire competition, but he was accused by Natasha as being complicit in this organization. Brian Lanzalota, a celebrity in Argentina, was also accused by Natasha as being involved in this ring. He was a housemate on Big Brother Season 8 and was the first contestant to be ejected from the game. There's also Ruben Pardo, who was accused by Natasha Jait as being involved in this same predator ring, who was allegedly helped out by Pope Francis in getting his charges dropped. Now, Ruben Pardo assaulted a 15-year-old named Gabriel Farini on August 15, 2002 at his residence at the Seminary House of Formation in Berazategui, Argentina. Now, allegedly, according to this whole lawsuit and legal process, this priest, Ruben Pardo, gave that 15-year-old Gabriel AIDS, and he later on from the disease, but he was never officially convicted of anything, and according to Natasha, that's because Pope Francis himself...
What the fuck's a priest doing with AIDS? So, he's a priest, and I guarantee you that's probably not his first kid. He killed that kid, physically and emotionally. And nothing happened. They probably just moved him somewhere else like they do all the time. Wasn't one of the popes from Argentina recently? Or this one right now?
had called prosecutors and inserted himself into these investigations to get the man's name cleared. There's also Oscar Gonzalez Oro, who was a journalist accused by Natasha as being involved in this predator ring, but there was no additional information able to be found during my investigation into what exactly had been claimed Oscar was involved in. There's also Alejandro.
I knew something was up about the Pope. He's from Argentina.
Fantino, a journalist, accused by Natasha of being involved in this same ring, who was an Argentinian radio and television host. No additional information could be found at the time of my investigation. There was also Liliana, a female producer in the Argentinian entertainment industry, who was accused by Natasha as being involved, but I couldn't find any additional information.
Yo, Pope Francis, where the fuck is it? He used to be a bouncer and a janitor. Interesting.
Liliana. There's also Martin Bustos, who we started off this episode talking about, who was a referee at Club Atletico, who was accused of children and charged with abuse and corruption of minors. Another person accused by Natasha was Albert Ponte, a football agent at Club Atletico, who was accused of children and charged with abuse and, once again, corruption of minors. But this thing went so much farther than what I'm even able to describe to you. Natasha was alleging that this predator ring extended into all facets of the elite society of Argentina. This extended to actors. This extended to politicians. This extended to priests and people in positions of power and influence.
Wonder.
And it's interesting, like I said, that woman actually was found to have talked about how she discovered her own father had a blackmail vault full of information that would incriminate people in the highest echelons of Argentinian society and the exact predator network that Natasha had been trying to warn people about all of this time. But still, Natasha, she was about to blow this thing wide open. She had tried her best by saying this stuff on national television, a live broadcast, so that her comments couldn't be edited out, and Natasha was. But what does all of this mean? Well, in conclusion, in 2024, the Buenos Aires Times reported that the investigation into the death of Natasha Jate had been shelved and concluded, saying that even though Natasha publicly denounced these people and tried to expose them on Twitter and wrote about the predator ring and pedophilia epidemic that was allegedly widespread in Argentina, nobody listened to her. Natasha had gone onto live television on major television programs and made these statements alleging that these infamous athletic clubs were involved in this, that there were children still actively under threat of abuse, that these predators were the people that you look up to and the people that you trust your children with. But at the end of the day, even though some of these people who Natasha alleged were involved in this ring had been accused of these crimes in the past, nobody looked into it. The people, the authorities in Argentina didn't look into Natasha's claims at all. They didn't investigate the possibility that there was this massive ring operating throughout Argentina, and they came to the conclusion that nobody was involved in Natasha's death other than herself. They stuck with the overdose thing. Even though somebody on the night of her death was proven to have lied 3 times, they still said that nobody was involved. Now, Natasha's relatives earlier this year went on to denounce this court's decision, and they also claimed that these courts never fully investigated the businessmen that were with Natasha on the night that she died, including Gonzalo Rigoni, the last person who ever saw her alive. Instead, they claimed that these authorities bore false witness with Velatsky Duarte, who claimed that there was no plot to kill Natasha because we went to a meeting with someone we did not know. Now, Velatsky Duarte went on to claim that we found out at the same spot, or that house, there had just been a party with pimps and drugs, federal crimes, which the courts never attempted to investigate.
Right.
Natasha's brother at the time of this ruling argued that it wasn't logical that this man had never been investigated for any sort of involvement in the death of his sister. And he stated out loud that one of these men, Gonzalo or Velatsky, had to have known something about what happened to his sister, and that he would fight and continue to fight for justice until the end of his own life. And on that note, I think it's relevant to end with a quote by former CIA Director of the United States, William Colby, who was writing to Senator John DeCamp, a man you might recognize who attempted to expose a similar predator ring that was operating in Nebraska here in the United States in the 1980s. CIA Director William Colby wrote, "What you have to understand, John, is that sometimes there are forces and events too big, too powerful, with so much at stake for other people or institutions that you cannot do anything about them, no matter how evil or wrong they are, and no matter how dedicated or sincere you are, or how much evidence you have. This is simply one of the hard facts of life that you have to face. So, at the end of the day, do you view or...
Oh shit, I've been totally fucking that up, huh? Exposing their celebrities, exposing their politicians, and then somehow all of the evidence somehow not released. And if they do, it's snippets, just like the Epstein shit, the Ghislaine Maxwell shit. Well, we haven't done the Diddy trial yet, so we can't really say the Diddy shit, but there's gonna be Diddy shit. Like, man.
It's weird to think
All
that
right.
it would take...
That's... I don't
This
know.
is a WD.
So we know what's happening in other countries, just same way as here, which is kind of weird. Now, it's not really that weird. And we have multiple, as we know. And Argentina, I don't know if there was more than one or just that big one. But what if, and there's probably no what if, because it is, there's at least one giant pedophile ring per country. And it's the world elites, like they said there. Don't know, man. I don't know. All right, so this next one was... This actual video wasn't sent to me. Another video was sent to me on this subject. And I decided to go Googling or searching for a little bit more. And I found a documentary done by Detroit. Click on Detroit Local 4, WDIV, from 5 years ago about a child killer. So without further ado, the North Fox Island.
DIV production.
You have teenage daughters and they babysit. Do you tell them anything special as a parent?
Well, I tell them lots of things as a parent. But as far as their safety when they're babysitting, we tell them use common sense.
Millions of young people run away each year. That can't be prevented. But a home like this is offering an alternative.
Is it your belief that she was taken out of this immediate area if she was kidnapped or abducted?
I'm pretty well convinced that she is out of this city if she was abducted, yes.
Police now know why Mark was kidnapped. They don't know why he died, or even if he was killed intentionally.
I think it's worthwhile. We have to find the girl. We need information to find the girl, no matter what the situation is, and that's why I'm here.
Look at the side of the face and the sideburn area as well as the hairline.
Tentatively, the body of the young lad down there is Timothy King.
A nightmare ends for the parents of Timothy King, and a new one begins.
I don't know that empathy will be quick to set in a case like this until the killer is caught.
State and local police say they have no one man under suspicion yet, but they think he lives and works in Oakland County.
And each time the phones ring, they hope that it will be a tip that will lead to the capture of the child killer.
No, before we get into this is actually a first in a docuseries. The other four I'm gonna probably do in consecutive days, but not the same killer. But the fact that they can make these documentaries with actual, and this is why I like the media, because the media back then didn't really lie so much, I guess.
During 13 months in 1976 and 1977, starting in February 1976, 4 kids between the ages of 10 and 12, were vanished from sidewalks and held from 4 to 19 days, and then their bodies were tossed by public roadsides.
There is a theory that the pedophile community may have someone in it that committed these murders.
I know there was questions about whether the 4 children that were killed in Oakland County that we know of, did some of that happen on North Fox Island?
I don't know that any of them knew that death was the final, chapter here, but all 4 of them were killed.
Oh, by the way, you're welcome, Deputy.
Some books on local islands, the 2 Fox Islands, and on Power Island near Traverse City. I'm presently writing a maritime history of Leelanau County. Well, I've lived in Leelanau County my whole life, since I was 12 years old, and not far away before that. And I just think it's the most beautiful, special place in the world. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else.
Well, this part of Michigan is just viewed as completely delightful. It's God's land and everything. I mean, people are they just marvel at it. Everybody comes up here and wants to stay. And it's wonderful that way.
It's about 30 miles to go to Traverse City, and I usually do that at least once a week, and probably most everybody else does too. I like the small town atmosphere, and it's not very far to go to the next community. We're 5 miles from Omena, 12 miles from Leland, 12 miles from Suttons Bay.
This is M22, and M22 goes all the way around the peninsula, on down to Anekama, Frankfurt, and it's just a real special road, and it's scenic all the way.
I was actually writing the history. I published the first book, They Came to South Fox Island, in 1982. But I wanted to update it to include North Fox. And when I was almost through with that book, that's when the whole Sheldon pornography thing broke. So it was just a beginning story when I was trying to wrap up my book.
Well, his name is Frank Sheldon. I really only got to know Frank. I used to go back and forth on the boat because my husband was out there. And after a while, they had a cabin out there, and the girls could go out once in a while and stay with the guys. And Frank often was on the boat, Frankie and his brother, and I just talked with him. And basically, that's all I knew about him.
Oh, good line.
He seemed to be a very nice person.
Unheard of.
Well brought up. I was impressed with him. Kind of in awe.
I didn't really know about it at the time that it was happening. But I was writing my book about adding North Fox to my original manuscript that was South Fox Island. And during that time, Francis Sheldon, was charged with crimes about involving a child pornography ring. And he was from downstate, Southfield, that area, and he was the owner of North Fox Island. At that time, I only knew about the charges concerning North Fox Island. It was later that, I don't even remember how, I came across information about the child killings in Oakland County.
This center is serving two purposes right now. One, of course, to find the murderer of Tim King, Jill Robinson, Christine Mihalik, and Mark Stebbins. The other purpose, he thinks, is to prevent another name from getting on that list.
And I've been following a blog by one of the victim's sisters who's kept it going all these years in hopes that those crimes there will be solved, where 4 children were killed and no one's ever been charged with the crime. They do believe, she believes, and others, that there was a connection between Francis Sheldon and Oakland County, at least in the same ring. He may not have been involved in those killings, but part of the same big pornography ring.
Well, it was pretty much a pedophilia, or I guess it was pornography, big deal also. It was also just about everything as it turned out. It just like had its own life. After the detective made the original arrest of the school teacher, and we found pictures.
Oh, shit.
That led us to Mount Eagle, Tennessee, which then just expanded after they found the boys' farm down there. And we received boxes of information from them that involved people all over the country, in fact, all over the world.
I know that the authorities thought it was a possibility, and they investigated to the best of their ability at that time these pedophile, porno, boy molesting rings that operated around here.
My family had a lumber business on South Fox Island in the 1950s and 60s, and Frank Sheldon came over there one day, and he was talking in the cookhouse about his brother Paul's mission, and my family members were quite impressed that he would want to do something like that for children.
There were all kinds of different things that were going out. There was a church that professed a man-boy love that was good for the child, the man and the boy, but primarily the boy. There was publications from various organizations that were in that arena that went out that identified ways that you could infiltrate boys clubs or Boy Scouts or Little League or Big Brothers, how you could get access to young men. And again, they would have their inner circle of contacts, and just like if you know somebody who knows someone else who knows somebody else, your expand of availability is, in this case, worldwide.
I don't really know how big this web is, and I don't know that anybody knows how big it is. I've read things that it's around the world. It's not just a Leelanau Grand Traverse thing or a Michigan thing, but it's very widespread. Lots of players.
You know, I couldn't believe it, really. It just didn't seem like that kind of a person.
I think they had some cover-up businesses and far-off places where they would deposit money, you know, just all this big connection thing that was hard to track.
He had property on North Fox Island, and we accessed the information about him through the school teacher that was arrested by the detective sergeant in St. Clair. He would fly friends and males that were interested in interacting to his property on North Fox Island.
It was. The cabin was a giant man cave, yeah. I mean, it was a bunch of guys out working out there. It was pretty bare. But I remember it had all windows towards the lake, and it had a high ceiling, and it hung over the bank pretty good.
There was a culture of people that were interested in, if you will, this arena, that had publications that would identify where
Whoa,
might
what the
find.
fuck? That was actually a magazine for this shit? I don't even want to Google it. I'm not Googling it.
A victim, if you will. And there were publications that were promoting this type of behavior as good for the child because they're getting gifts most of the time. They're getting time spent. They're getting love and affection. And there's nothing wrong with that. So it's absolutely good for the child. And there were several, I don't know exactly how many publications from various organizations that we got promoting man-boy.
Oh, fuck.
Associations, man-boy love.
Francis Shelton he actually had a degree in archaeology, and he was a millionaire, at least, down in Oakland County area, and he was involved in a lot of philanthropical things and belonged on a lot of boards that had to do with children. He purchased North Fox Island, I believe from Alma Plank, if I remember right, who had owned North Fox and a large part of South Fox. He introduced deer to the island, wanted to have a resort for people who had their own small aircraft, and he had an airfield built over there. I know that he built some buildings there. He had the Kelchik excavating family from Onena put in a crib that they could tie their boat up to, and had them build 4 or 5 buildings, small buildings there. And the airport, of course, is the airstrip was a major thing.
Seems to me it was like 2 or 3 summers by they got it done. They had to cut all the trees and then stump it all and then level it.
Really what he bought it for and installed the land strip for was to run a child pornography operation there. And he had a private jet and he'd fly kids from Charlevoix to the island.
All these fucking rich people kind of want a list of all that own their own private island at this point. No reason. No reason. Just curious. You know, it's good to know. Because maybe their island will be coming up for sale soon when they move to another... Wait, that means you can't get to them because it's their island.
And had a filming operation there and had, horrible, horrible things.
His family was very wealthy and owned major properties in the city of Detroit. He was very active in the arena with his friends within the state. And apparently there were several of his friends that would take males to the island. He had an airplane and he would fly him up there and fly him back.
I grew up in Port Huron. We were pretty well off as far as a family went. That's why I went to St. Joe's, and yeah, it was good. It was a good childhood, actually.
I mean, I had heard about nuns. The old school Roman Catholic nuns. They don't play, and that's true. But learn discipline, and I liked it. We were poor, but we had uniforms. So this kid that I sat next to, his father's a judge, but we dressed the same. My mom was a maid, but we still dressed the same. So that part about it I liked.
St. Joe's is a Catholic school across the street from the St. Joe's Catholic Church. It's almost like a private school type thing. And yeah, and I actually did walk a mile one way, both ways to school when I was a kid. But yeah, that's what that was.
We always ate our lunch in the classroom. The nun would go over to the convent, which was just adjacent to the school on the other side of the parking lot. And after lunch, I would get up and I would do my comedy routine every day until I got caught, and then that stopped. I was the front of the classroom in the class in the back of the bus kind of guy.
Dude, where's your neck?
Always a character, trying to make people laugh.
I don't remember the name of the gym instructor before him, but he was a really good guy.
We only had gym class once a week in Catholic school.
It shows.
Yeah, the gym teacher was great. You know, we did our regular exercise, and you know, and I thrived in there. I loved doing that. I would have loved to have gym class all the time.
What happened?
Just regular guys, you know, pushing us to, you know, run that extra lap or whatever the case may be.
And he left, and that's when Mr. Richards came.
My initial impression of Richards, just a regular guy. He intrigued me with magic. He was a magician. Tall, skinny, glasses, big, like Coke bottle type glasses.
Those fucking ears, though. Holy shit.
Hair was always greasy with that grease stuff that they
slicked back.
You know, put in the hair. Kind of like dressed like Mr. Rogers, I guess.
It was really weird when he first got.
Whoa. Whoa. I did not watch this. I did not watch this. And if you're wondering why I said that, go back and listen to the song I played at the beginning. After the Pledge of Allegiance.
Everything started to change right away. We had to all of a sudden start taking showers, and we'd never showered before, ever. And his excuse was, well, you guys can't be going back to class stinking and whatever, so we had to start bringing towels, we had to take showers, you know, so whatever. And he was just, normal? As far as a gym teacher, he just seemed off. He was real ranky and raily. The guy didn't look like he could have fought his way out of a wet paper bag. And it was, as a kid, you don't go, well, what the heck is this guy doing as our gym teacher? It's like, well, this is our new guy. You need to respect that, and it is what it is. But he just wasn't. It was night and day compared to the other gym's instructor. The only thing that I remember was once, and it wasn't me. It was another kid. Got the towel snapped, and it was like, oh, you doing okay, buddy? And then it was. The one kid got his shoulders rubbed, and the other kid got his butt rubbed because it was trying to make you feel better, you know. And yeah, you can't be doing that, but it wasn't like you're gonna have detention or something, you know. So, but yeah, it was. I remember he used to rub our shoulders a lot. How you guys doing? You limbered up? You ready? So it was always he did touch us where the other one didn't touch us. So. Yeah,
he would do the patting on the ass. The only gym teacher I ever had that would be in the shower in the locker room.
Oh, this is totally making me rethink my coaches. What the fuck?
When we were taking showers. Like, and Mike wasn't on the basketball team, so he would even come in during the basketball showers. And I just thought it was odd, but at 11 years old in the Catholic school, you felt protected. And I did, and I guess I sort of dismissed it as, oh, I guess that's just the way it is. Not knowing that, you know, come here, I'll show you this magic trick kind of thing, and, you know, gained his trust, and I liked him. Yeah.
Frank Sheldon was introduced to us as Mr. Richards' uncle. This is my Uncle Frank. So, oh, okay, well, this is Frank, and Frank owns the island and whatever, and we're, you know, so.
Wealthy man. Anybody from that area knew, you know, he was very prominent, wealthy, come from wealthy family, so on. Everything just seemed legit. I mean, it didn't, because my mom, being a single mom, my dad died when I was 5, and I had 3 siblings, so she was very protective. Never saw it coming.
From what I understood, he went to a couple of the other boys and myself's parents and said, these guys did an exceptional job this year in gym class, and as a reward, we'd like to take them up to the island for, I don't remember if it was for a week or 2 weeks or 4 days, or I don't remember that part of it. But that's what it basically was. It was because we did such an excellent job, and we were so well-mannered that was kind of a reward for us to go up to the island.
It was so fun. I was so excited. I had some of my neighborhood friends with us in the station wagon. Back then, you know, you didn't need seat belts or anything. You just piled 10 kids in the station wagon, there you go. 76, I think it was, give or take. Went there, got on the plane, and I remember getting on the plane. I was so excited. Me and Mike and there's two other kids. I think one was a grade above us, and one was a grade below us, if I remember correctly. And I remember just taking off, just like rock stars. I'm in a plane. I've never been in a plane before. You know, I'm just a poor kid who lives in the projects. Got lucky enough to get a tuition to a Catholic school. Yeah, it was really cool.
So I remember we met up. They, I'm assuming there was a parental slip that was signed or something. I don't remember that part of it, but I know we went to St. Clair County Airport. All the family showed up with the parents and the kids. We all said, "Yep," got on the plane, and away we went. It was exciting from the moment the plane took off till we came back. Everything we did on the island, myself, was great. Flying, it was like, man, I wonder what it's going to be like. It's just all the what ifs and what's going to happen and all the other stuff. But and it was basically because I like to eat. Not that you can tell that, but I enjoy eating, and the food was phenomenal. They fed us like kings while we were up there. Everything was fun. Everything was great. I remember I'd go out and stand and just watch the water, and you could see forever. It was like being on top of the world. You know, it was really cool. The island was beautiful. It was a really cool place. And we go down, the water was like, it almost looked like the ocean, but it was freezing.
And I remember landing. I remember getting our stuff, getting our cabin, and you know, within an hour, we were naked on the beach. That's just how it was. If you live on an island, this is how they do it in islands. So. Okay. Again, 11 years old, I'd assume I was protected. That's my gym teacher right there.
And, hey guys, let's go skinny dipping. And then to me it was weird because it's supposed to be dark when you go skinny dipping, you know. Oh, there's no girls around, nobody's gonna see you. Here, watch, you know. So Mr. Richards takes all his clothes off, jumps in the water, swims around. Come on, you guys, it's all right, and whatever. Well, we all take our swim stuff off, whatever. We jump in and we're all running around naked. Well, hindsight now looking at it, well, that's pretty wrong. I mean, it's really off key to be doing anything like that. But they made it so that it was, he, because Frank wasn't there. I don't know if he was up filming us or what he was doing.
I remember seeing, you know, when I was talking to Mike, we've talked several times on the phone, rehashing things, helping each other remember things. And he remembers as well as I do, seeing cameras. You know, in it's like a beach, and to us, you know, we're in the Bahamas, and I remember seeing cameras, but me and the other boys were all naked. That's just the way. That's what you did. That's what you did. If you want to be on the island, that's what you have to do. You have to be naked. So we were all naked.
But Mr. Richard made it as, oh, don't worry about it. Nobody's going to know. Nobody's going to see it. It's okay. Come on, look, I'm doing it. So let's do it. So that's what we did. Come on, guys, bury me in the sand. So burying him in the sand, and you know, and everybody's naked, running around, but it's okay because there's no girls around. You know, that's the way they presented it. Don't worry, guys, there's no girls. Nobody will see you.
It was figured out a way for us to touch him inadvertently, like, let's bury him because he's naked, and then we're going to have to touch him, you know, somewhere. And he did games like that quite often. Again, you know, and if you started feeling a little uneasy, I remember a couple times feeling a little uneasy, you know, you'd do a magic trick, and oh yeah, you know, it was cool.
We got him all buried, you know, and it's, we're running around, whatever. Well, I picked up a rock. I believe it was about the size of a softball, but kind of elongated. And I took and I threw it, and it hit him right in his genital area, and he got upset because he was buried in the sand still. But that's where I was aiming too. I don't know why, but I got him with a rock.
Right to the beach. You know, just leave your clothes, and you know, you can bring a towel to put in the beach, but the other boys had to be naked, and that's just how it was.
So once again, they played on our trust.
But yeah, but there's times we could just go, you know, be boys, you know. But they focused on me a lot, I noticed. Long blonde hair, blue-eyed, 11-year-old, you know. The very first day we were there, and I had a sunburn, and Jerry Richards rubbed lotion on me everywhere. Again, I just thought it was normal. That was uncomfortable. But he just relaxed me with I don't remember even what he said, but just relax or something like that. You know, where I would rub lotion on me. I remember him taking lotion and putting it on his hand here, and then just me laying on my stomach and just going between my my cheeks, you know, with his hand like that. And I felt very uncomfortable, but he assured me everything was okay, and this is what we're supposed to do. Again, I trusted him. You know, turn over, do the same thing, because you have to protect that. You know, so every day he did that to me.
Jesus Christ.
First chance I had where nobody was watching me, I was gone. So when they told me you can't be taken off, it was almost like you go to grandma's house and all the grandkids are there and you're playing and you're doing everything to have a good time because you haven't seen everybody, and it's like, you kids quit running, go sit down over there for a little bit. That feeling that's kind of what it was like when I was told that I can't, don't just be going out looking for stuff, like they got to keep an eye on you all the time. So it kind of put some of the fire out, you know.
Sheldon, he said the same thing too. This is how things are. You know, this is my island. I own this island. Blah blah blah. And you kids are lucky and fortunate to be here.
Oh.
You know, so basically just adhere to these rules.
Like Willy Wonka.
And this is how we are here. You know, and they were naked as well.
I was never really super comfortable around him just because I didn't know him. But when he did that, I definitely put a distance between him and I was more, anything I did was more towards Mr. Richards because I knew him.
Bro, the Oompa Loompas weren't adults. The Oompa Loompas were kids.
I don't know, maybe that was before anything had ever happened. So
Mike and I would venture off, you know, got this island, and when we could go somewhere with our clothes on, we'd just go and do what boys do, you know.
There was a stump, and it was probably about the size around as this chair, maybe 4 or 5 feet long. And I remember there was snakes on the end of it. So I rolled the thing, I rolled it with the bottom ripped off of it, and there was literally thousands of snakes in this thing. And there were, they weren't like just all garter snakes. There were ringneck snakes and milk snakes, and it was just this, it was the greatest thing ever. I go back and I get Bill, and I said, you got to see these snakes. He said, I don't really care for snakes. I said, well, come on, you got to see this. This is really, I wanted to show somebody.
There's cameras by the trail that we took. Mike and I would go, you know, catch snakes and salamanders and just do what boys do. And there's cameras, you know, a lot all over the place, really.
It's almost like, you ain't going to believe this unless you see it. So him and I, we take and go out, and the snakes are still there, and he's like, you are nuts. So we were there, probably an hour, I'm guessing, half hour. From the time we walked there, checked them out, and then walked back, it was about an hour. Well, when we got back, we couldn't find anybody. You know, usually there was somebody right around the main cabin, and there was nobody there. So we went down to the beach, ran down to the beach. We actually ran because it was kind of like, what the heck's going on? So we ran down to the beach, there's nobody there. We ran back up, went to each cabin, nobody there. What the heck? They left us. That's the first thing we thought. So we take and run down to the airstrip, and the plane's there. So we're like, okay, well, what the heck? So we go back, and the Jeep was gone. So we're like, they must have just took a ride, and they're out going around the island and whatever. So I want to say it was probably a couple hours. And we got into the food bill. We snuck and we were eating candy bars and stuff. Let's get some chow while they're gone, you know, whatever. So, and then they came back, and they were happy, but the two boys were different after they were quiet.
I don't know if it's the exact same time, but I remember hearing one of the kids screaming and crying, like somebody was hurting him. And he was screaming and yelling, stop. And we didn't know what was going on, and we knew it was coming from a locked door. And there's nothing we could do except for take off running, you know, which is what we did. Now, I don't know if it's that same time, and I remember the tree trunk full of snakes, because that was cool, you know, wow. You know, we're 11. But we heard the kid crying. I think it was a kid that was a grade above us. Heard him screaming and crying to stop. Yeah, I remember that very vividly. I don't think he really talked much. He didn't talk a lot before, but he didn't talk really at all after that. They kind of kept him secluded from us, I think.
They didn't talk anymore. You know, we would have cookouts and stuff. We'd cook hot dogs and have the marshmallows and stuff. And everybody was talking, but those kids they didn't really talk at all anymore. They didn't say anything. And it was kind of odd, you know, that was just, as a kid though, you're not going, geez, I wonder what the heck's going on with her. It was just, it just seemed a lot quieter.
The one older kid, he was kind of quiet to begin with. He's kind of a tough guy, you know, at least I thought. But then after that, he didn't talk. He didn't do anything more like sit at the beach by himself and, you know, down by the water. Of course, Jerry Richards was right there comforting, putting his arm around him, you know, that kind of stuff. I think Mike was the lucky one. Just his natural curiosity to run and, you know, and be a boy and look around, you know, kept him safe, you know, and I'm glad for him. I wasn't as fortunate.
And I don't know if there was another building, if they took him down to the beach. I don't know where they went. I don't have any idea on that, but from what I gathered from that, they went and molested him and filmed him while Bill and I were gallivanting around the woods. It's just like it didn't sink in as, wow, these kids went through an awful hell. And, you know, until I started getting older and I was thinking, wow, you know, they used our innocence, and that sucks.
He asked if I could put some lotion on him, and I was very hesitant, and I knew that I shouldn't do that. He said, well, you know, I did you, and you should do that for me, that kind of thing. So I did. I knew it was wrong. It's hard to describe. I felt shameful. I knew it was wrong, something I shouldn't have done. And I'm thinking, in my 11-year-old mind, I never had nothing to say at confession because we used to go to confession once a week. And I never had anything to say at confession because I never did anything wrong. This is definitely wrong, so I'm definitely going to have to tell the priest this. So I felt bad. Should I say it? And they got you thinking, you know, you have to confess, you know, your sins in order to be forgiven. This is how we were taught. So I think my biggest worry was if I should tell the priest, or should I tell my mom? I should keep it to myself. They said, oh, I'm going to get in trouble, but I might get in trouble if I tell it to the priest. You know, so a lot of mixed emotions. It was a really messed up time, I guess. Yeah.
You didn't tell him?
My mom and dad were more of, let's get a hold of the cops. And, you know, I'm more of a handle it myself guy.
I'm more angry that I didn't do more, and because I knew. I mean, after the 4th or 5th time, this isn't right. This isn't normal. The first time, I could almost think of a reason why that it's normal. But after that, I just knew. And then, you know, and that's when it comes with the hush-hush and don't say nothing. You're gonna get in trouble, so on and so on. You know, kind of the scare tactic, you know, to keep my mouth shut.
If someone did that to one of my kids and I found out about it, they better get to him first. Because if I can get my hands on you, you're done.
Angry, fighting, never fought before. I spent the next 5 years, 4 years, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Half of my school was sitting in with a counselor for anger management. Because I just fought, I was just angry. And I battled depression, almost 4 decades. Sometimes it rears its ugly head, but, you know, I've learned to control it, and, you know, life goes on.
Right, what's that?
We had gone out there before with the kids and played on the beach and wandered around. This one time we went out, and actually we didn't have the kids with us. It was my husband and myself, Ron, and my sister and her husband. And we were close to the island, and we saw an airplane take off. Well, he saw us and turned around and went back. But we thought, well, Mike said he wasn't sure who we were. He was just checking to see who was coming to the island. Well, he met us on the beach in a Jeep. He put his plane down, he met us on the beach in a Jeep. And they had built a house and the motel on the island over a period of time there. And so he drove us up to the house and I said, well, I'll be back.
Mama, I get connected to Wi-Fi.
We were there over an hour and a half, and he never came back. We couldn't figure out what was going on. We kind of wandered around, looked around, and it was about an hour and a half at least, if not longer. And then he took us back and showed us the motel. It's the only thing we can figure. He was cleaning things up while we were sitting there.
Is this the main cabin?
Well, this is the only cabin.
Kathy Firestone. I wrote a book, The Fox Islands North and South. I don't know if you've seen it, but it talks about all of that.
I'd like to read that. I'm a Christian, and I know this has been a lot of fond memories bringing our children here, and you know, there was some very bad things I think going on here. This was the bedrooms that he was using.
Yeah.
These are 2 bedrooms. There's one on each side. They were using this area too. As you can see, we've made it into we don't come here that often, but we come probably once or twice a month in the summertime. I personally didn't like this place. I don't know if it was because of the bad vibes or what for a long time as a Christian, but I think personally, I'm over that. It is so, I ache for the kids that were taken advantage of.
Why would you buy that place?
I know it shocked a lot of people in Leland who knew him and trusted him and considered him a friend. He had meals in people's homes, spent the night in some people's homes. They just thought he was a good, regular guy who was a writer, but he didn't want to show what he was writing.
Hair brown, eyes brown.
Well, I'd never heard of North Fox Island until I got the police reports. But it's apparent to me that no school teacher or TV reporter buys North Fox Island and puts in a runway for airplanes to land to take care of small boys from Detroit to see northern Michigan, and then engage in pedophile activities without that being an important part of the news at that time. The Traverse City paper published a very interesting article on it, and after that, silence took over, much like it did in my case. And I guess if you got enough money to buy an island and put in a runway, you got enough money to hide the facts.
Man-boy love was not something which was on the radar screen of people at that time. I mean, that was unheard of and unthinkable. But for the first time, people became aware that this kind of activity took place. And there might be groups of men who got together for the purpose of getting boys involved with them sexually. Whether it would be luring them into a trap, abducting them, or even getting neighbor boys that they knew involved with their activities. for the first time, the public became aware, as I remember, of an organization called NAMBLA, the Man-Boy Love Association. What? This is unbelievable, but actually it existed.
It was huge. It was a multi-million-dollar enterprise. And it began in 1975 because there were a bunch of court cases that challenged
remember hearing about
obscenity
this
and
court case
adult
when I was a kid.
pornography laws, and they
Nothing
won
really
on the
just
basis of First Amendment
stuck back then.
challenges. And the U.S. market saw a huge business opportunity using kids, and they paid kids
Matter of fact,
enormous
I
sums
think
of money.
when I was a kid and I used to hear about that, it never clicked that as man-boy love. It was just that you were gay. You know, I don't know. I wasn't a very smart kid, or maybe I was.
Runaways mostly.
You know, I've walked the whole perimeter of North Fox Island and South Fox Island, and a lot of the Manitous, not as much because they're much bigger, but I've been covered quite a bit of ground on all of the islands, and I just like to think of them as happy places and places to relax and enjoy nature, not places where torture happened.
It isn't as beautiful anymore. We all loved that island, and all the guys, you know, just a lot of experiences out there. It was a good project, and it was going to be a good place, and then that happened.
We heard that he went to Majorca, which apparently is an island off the coast of Africa,
Spain.
a place I, too, have never been to. We had a federal fugitive flight warrant sent, and that's the last I heard of him.
There was a report that he had died, I think in the mid-1990s, but some people thought he just disappeared and took up a new identity. He was older than I was, I know that, so if he was still alive today, he'd be really getting up there.
There is a theory that the pedophile community may have someone in it that committed these murders. We don't know, because we don't know who was committing the murders.
He could have been asphyxiated by somebody holding a pillow over his face.
I thought somebody found you.
We're just following up on phone call leads that we've gotten. We've been working on that last night and all day today.
Money is being used for reward for apprehensions of persons or persons who are holding Christine.
The killer or killers of little Tim and the other little children are still out there.
It's a logical jump from that community to what was taking place, especially with the males being sexually assaulted.
An investigation, you start reaching out for anything. Fox Island had a reputation, certainly the Cass Corps did, and when the police have nothing else, they'll start chasing the rumors that are on the street. But I don't know, I never did suspect that these 4 kids were dragged into a pedophilia ring. You know.
We were the first to look at pornography and pornography rings in pedophilia as being a motive in this case. So we put quite a bit of time and effort into that. Were these kids filmed, pictures taken, were they passed around?
That was pretty smart.
And we don't know at this point, but we did put a lot of time and effort into that.
The Chicago Tribune did a tremendous 4-part series. I think it was in May of 1977. So you see, just right
out there and open.
late, and broke it wide open. They found as many as 100,000 kids were involved, and this wasn't just in seedy, you know, basements in the ghetto. This was being produced on Fox Island, on wealthy executive / pedophiles.
I think that's, a valid theory. The hierarchy, the higher ups, you're never gonna expose them very rarely. And it's kind of like a mafia organization. You'll get some of the mules and some of the lowers, but to get up into the higher levels, very, very, very difficult to get to those people. They're not stupid people. They're usually very intelligent, maybe highly educated, and they're not going to leave a trail. They're not going to leave information. And if they do, they've got some pretty good dirt on the people that are below them, so that it's not going to be revealed. And I think that's typical. I think it happens quite a bit.
We wondered, of course, as investigators, and what happened when these children were held in captivity, basically. And you're right, the boys were the ones who were assaulted sexually. So and it helps us tell us what we're looking for. And it's just, as a man and as a father, it just grinds on you. It just really, you see these kids, what they went through, and what the torture had to be, and how painful and humiliating it was. And then, I don't know that any of them knew that death was the final, chapter here, but all 4 of them were killed.
When the 2 boys when there's evidence that they had been molested, and that's when we thought that there could be 2 separate killers.
One part of it that doesn't fit, however, is that the more people know of a crime, the more likely it is that somebody will snitch.
It's hard for a big number of people to cover something up. Sooner or later, somebody is going to say something. Maybe not till their deathbed, but it just hasn't been solved,
There were other cases of boys being molested in connection with the ring on North Fox Island, and some of those became clear in the aftermath and during the child killer investigation. But the smoking gun was never quite discovered in connection with what was going on North Fox Island. And tragically, as the years go on, the trail gets colder and colder. In any crime, the more people know about it, the more likely it is that something will come out and make it unravel. There are so many people connected to these man-boy love groups that you have to think that somebody somewhere would spill the beans, and it hasn't happened enough that they can go back and say that they can link this to the child killings.
It's just because of the trust and innocence that children have, and for someone to steal that away from them, you're basically taking part of their life away. It's not fair. So, yeah, I have 0 tolerance. And if it was one of my kids, it would be awful.
Everybody knows, the small town, and once word got out about Mr. Richards, everybody knew that after that it was kind of different, and fag was used a lot back then.
It was, still is.
So kids were way more apprehensive of him the next year, and I don't even know if he made it the entire school year. So then again, I was angry at the school, because how could you hire this man and bring him into our school? So a lot of mixed emotions. I'm not afraid to tell the story now. Even as a grown man, you got that little boy inside you that doesn't want to tell anybody. That little boy died a long time ago, so. I haven't seen a picture of him in 30 years. I went back in my 20s to look for him. And I was telling my wife this story, and she said, "Did you ever find him?" And I said, "I'm telling you the story." "No, I didn't, because I would have killed him." So then I went looking for his grave. Never could find that either. So he just kind of been buried for a long time.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the time has come. The time has come. There's 4 more. 4 more. But we're not going to get into those right now because, well, there's really no good reason why we're not going to get them other than, I don't know, attention spans might be dropping and oh, runny nose. Maybe I'm getting that bird flu. Caw! That didn't happen. That didn't happen. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you guys want to watch one more? No? Alright, cool. With that being said, I'm not telling y'all how to think. I'm just saying there's some sick fucking people out there. And it's weird, like, to hear some of the stuff they're saying, you're like, wait a second. Like, that thought, I was like, fuck, man, I was thinking about my baseball coaches. That's kind of fucking weird to think about that now. Fuck it. I think it's part of the same thing.
Based on the investigation at this point, Sergeant, what are your chances of catching the individual or individuals
Fuck it, we'll watch another one for today.
I wouldn't be able to put it in a percentage-wise. There'd be no way for me knowing this, and I don't think anybody could put it in a percentage.
Are you optimistic that you will?
Oh, certainly.
Our interest was in all the children that were killed down there. There were the 4 primaries, and I didn't remember it was 3, but I know there were some before that, so we were interested in all the Oakland County murders. It was, because they may or may not be related.
The girl's nude body was discovered here along Franklin Road early this morning by a passing motor.
But we had, like I said, interest, and we had detectives working on it, and they were in the task force that was many agencies were involved with, but I don't remember any specifics.
When I found out she was mentioning that, and the police brought them pictures over of her, I just didn't believe it was her until I went to the morgue to see her, and my dad couldn't even identify her because he just wouldn't. He just didn't want to admit it and that, and I couldn't even hardly identify her. And that. All I know is I want to get a hold of the guy that did it, or whoever did it, because I loved my sister.
All I know is I miss her.
We went back and we looked at some of these reports and followed up as much as we could on them. They are not necessarily officially part of the task force investigation, but they are cases that are in orbit with this task force investigation. And if we get a lead on them, of course we'd love to solve those cases as well, whether they are officially part of the task force or not.
Next thing I knew, a voice was saying, "Don't move or I'll blow your brains out." And so I froze, and he told me to freeze, so I froze right there, and came over to me and told me to bury my face in the pillow, and then he covered me up with a blanket, asked me where the cash was, and I told him there wasn't any cash.
Footprints here in the snow on the steps and fingerprints here on the door frame are among the physical evidence uncovered by the State Police Crime Lab. Right now they're looking for a man believed to be anywhere from 19 to 25 years of age, 5'10" to 6 feet tall, very slender with a prominent nose and dark, long, wavy hair. He was believed driving a gold or green Cadillac, model 1966 or 1968.
It was very alarming. First we had Cynthia Cadieux, and then we had Sheila Srock, who was murdered in her home by someone who broke into the house. And it was shocking. Here you had a a murder in the city of Birmingham, a place where there were never murders, and it was a child, a little girl. It was very alarming, and there were alarms that went off for the first time for many people that a crime like that can happen here in Birmingham, in our peaceful, no-crime community.
Since January 1st, 2 teenage girls have been found murdered while babysitting. Could these deaths have been prevented? Are there precautions?
When we go into a home, we insist that the parents leave us a list of any adults that they are expecting during the time that they're gone. If the doorbell rings and they peek out and don't know who it is, call the police and then call me.
For the first time ever for these communities, there was concern that children were becoming victims of crime, and we had never heard of this before. First, not one but 2 young girls killed in their neighborhoods. It was shocking, and there were fears on the part of many of us that there was one person or persons that were doing this. This was before these crimes were committed. So already our communities were on edge. These kind of murders that had never happened.
Bro, those
around
bumper
here
stickers
before.
need to come back. Y'all see that? Kids don't go with strangers. Kids don't go with strangers. Kids don't go with strangers. It's a pimp ass bumper sticker.
These kind of murders that had never happened around here before.
It heightened the mass panic and fear. That's, that was certainly a contributing factor.
Family members say that even if the killer is never caught, he'll have to live forever with what he did. And someday, they say, he'll have to face the Day of Atonement. Someday. This is Robert Vito, News 4, Roseville.
I watched mothers, every mother walked her child to school. And when school was over, every mother was there to pick up her kid. Kids weren't walking by themselves. And that lasted for a couple of years. It was just a horrific, I don't know, you want to say strain in the air, fear.
The whole community was in terror, and parents were fearful for their kids, and we were all told to walk in groups together, and no one could come out of the schools unless their parents were there to pick them up. And yeah, it was horrible. It turned life around as we knew it at that time.
Parents, would not let their children out of their sight, nor should they.
No, yeah, they shouldn't.
Maybe the opportunities for future assaults, became more difficult for this guy because the kids are getting smarter and smarter.
After the murders of 3 previous girls in the same area, in our suburban areas, this was another child who had been murdered. And after getting some details from this lieutenant, as he would give them to me, I asked him, "Is there an Oakland County child killer on the loose?" And he paused for a minute and he said,
"Fuck.
Yes, there's an Oakland County child killer."
Like that, or fuck, there is.
They tied them so damn tight, you try to fight, it just cuts into you.
How can you just kill a 12-year-old in the middle of a very busy intersection and no one knows anything? How can that be?
Their bodies were tossed by public roadsides, almost as if to taunt officers.
We were being told that these were isolated incidents. They were working on them and to be careful, but there still was no child killer out there that was a serial type of killer. So our communities were on edge. However, we thought our authorities were solving these crimes and it would all go away.
Oh.
I'm guessing he was disguised as a police officer, disguised as a priest.
We're pretty much at a standstill unless some people step forward.
The whole community was in terror.
This individual with the DOJ looked at my dad and just point blank said, you know what? You got a bunch of sick motherfuckers in Oakland County, and it is one of the wealthiest counties, and all I'm gonna tell you to do is pay attention and watch your back.
We don't know how he was asphyxiated. He could have been asphyxiated by somebody holding a pillow over his face. He could have been asphyxiated in a trunk of a car that didn't leak air.
There were unusual aspects to this beyond the horror of a child being abducted.
My sister had premonitions that she was going to die. She knew she was going to die.
Money does a lot of strange things to people. It can do anything.
Oh, I mean, Vern.
Oakland County enjoyed back then, and still does today, enjoys a reputation of being a safe community, good place to raise a family, good schools and so forth. So to have 4 kids kidnapped and murdered right in the middle of the 70s in this county, it was surreal.
Oakland County is the wealthiest county in Michigan. It is now, and it was then in the 60s and the 70s. It's a place where people aspired to. If you were, many people who were in Detroit moved to Oakland County. There were green fields and brand new subdivisions. There were areas where you could build a brand new house. And of the people that were already there, they were growing families with lots of children. 2 cars were in the driveway instead of 1. There were attached garages, which was unheard of in the city. And all kinds of amenities were there, as they are now. But it was the growing center where people wanted to go with their families.
We grew up in Ferndale, a couple blocks south of 9 Mile, and west or east of Woodward. It was a good neighborhood, and all the neighbors were good there. Kids were safe. Us neighbors and kids, like my brother, we'd go to the park, play baseball. We'd play football on our front lawns.
On February 15, 1976, Mark Stebbins was walking home from the American Legion at Livernois and 9 Mile, where his mother worked.
She worked as a bartender at the American Legion Hall in Ferndale, and there was a pool tournament there. And he wanted to go home to watch a movie.
I think it was 30 seconds over Tokyo, because he was a war buff. And when I got there and he wasn't there, it's like, something's wrong with this picture.
We don't know where exactly he was picked up.
My mom called from the American Legion. She asked me, is Mark there? I'm like, no. And she's like, well, I don't understand that.
He headed home and never made it.
She asked me, can you call some of his friends and see if they've seen him? Which I did. Nobody had seen him.
Ruth got home. She was a single mom. She was divorced. And she waited until pretty late, and she finally called the police and filed a missing persons report.
And the Ferndale police says, well, we have to wait about 24 hours to report a missing person. And it's like, for a child, you know, a 12-year-old kid.
Yeah,
you
it
gotta
definitely
wait
shouldn't have to be 24 hours. It's stupid. Wait, was that the body? It sure was.
He's going home to watch a 1 o'clock movie on the theater. I mean, on the
That
TV.
wasn't edited out.
Didn't say anything about meeting anyone or? Nope, definitely not. How well did you know the child? Very well, 3.5 years. He talked to you about anything in recent days, or?
I don't remember.
Normal activity of a young happy-go-lucky boy. Happy-go-lucky kid. He never got no trouble in the way.
He was missing for 4 days. The Ferndale police were in charge of the missing person investigation at that time, and they wanted to put out a picture of Mark.
They asked for a photo of Mark, but she was didn't have the money for those childhood photos.
Police artists did a composite drawing of Mark and put that out on the missing poster.
No one heard anything, no one saw anything. He was missing for 4 days.
The police were good enough to come back and communicate with my mom and her boyfriend. And then on the 19th, the bottom of the world just dropped out.
Four days later, his body was found at behind an office complex at 10 and Greenfield.
A person walking his dog in a strip mall in Southfield. I think it was called Fairfax Plaza. Saw something against a short brick wall, and he said he thought it was a mannequin. You know, he walked up, and it was a body of a small boy.
I decided to go to class one day instead of playing hooky, and the vice principal's waiting outside the class. I'm like, oh. He's like, are you Michael Stebbins? I says, yes. He's like, please follow me to the office. And I'm wondering, okay, am I in trouble, or is there something going on with this?
No, they know you're not the missing
And
kid.
I got into the principal's office, and the principal informed me that he wasn't allowed to tell me nothing. Well, I started stomping my feet and pounding my fists, and then the principal gave through. He says, they found a young boy in Southfield that matches your brother's description.
Oh.
And then the Ferndale police came to the school and gave me a ride back to my house. And I met up with my mom and her boyfriend, and we just kind of had our little sorrow powwow together, you know.
The investigation immediately involved the Ferndale Police Department and the Southfield Police Department. His body was found just outside of a barrier wall, and his body was in his coat. His pullover jacket had been pulled, so you couldn't see much of his face.
At 15 years old, I didn't know what to think, you know. I'm just a young punk out there. You know, it's like, why would somebody take my brother off the street and do such brutal things and murder him? And I beat myself up for a long time, a lot of years. And it's like, I thought to myself, well, what if I would have walked home with him? Would he have made it? Or who knows, would they have tried to get both of us? I have no idea.
And at that point, his body was transported to the Oakland County Medical Examiner's office, where an autopsy was performed. There were kind of conflicting results as to what the medical examiner found at that time. A very early report indicated that there was the presence of seminal fluid, but a subsequent review of the evidence that we found, we could find nothing that indicates that any seminal fluid was ever recovered.
There were unusual aspects, to this beyond the horror of a child being abducted and then his body being found several days later out in the cold. His body was scrupulously clean. He was clothed and apparently well fed. He was in the clothes that he last had on when he was abducted. And he was, if I recall correctly, found in a kind of a sleeping position.
No specific suspects. We're looking into a lot of background of a lot of people who have got backgrounds of this type of offense right now.
For the first time, after the killings of the girls, after the killing of Mark Stebbins, real fear shot through the community. Real fear on the point of hysteria.
December 22nd, Jill is at home in Royal Oak.
As I sit here listening and watching this, we didn't have the internet back then. If we didn't see this stuff on national news, we never saw it. Kind of like today. That's crazy. So there could have been a whole lot more underreported stuff. I don't know where I'm getting at with that. It just seems like it's been allowed over time. I don't know, man. It's crazy to me.
Recently moved to Royal Oak. Her mom was divorced. Her mom, Carol Robinson, they'd separated when the youngest was a baby, and she lived in Detroit and she worked as a court reporter, and then she recently had moved the kids to Royal Oak.
I am Jill Robinson's sister. I was 9 and she was 12. Mom and my 2 sisters and I lived in Detroit growing up, and then we moved out of there to be in a safer neighborhood. And so that was in 1975, 76. And so right when we moved in the summer of 76, Mark Stebbins had already been killed.
Jill was not in a good mood that night.
Early reports had indicated she had a fight with her mother, and her father lived some distance away.
Carol repeatedly asked her, "What's wrong, honey? What's wrong?" Well, Jill was not talking. And they get home, and
I think my sister and my mom got in an argument about her forging a note about something. I don't know. Like my sister, I don't even know why she would do that. She's in 6th grade. But she was very headstrong and strong and smart and stubborn.
Jill went up to her bedroom, and Carol really wanted her to help make dinner. She wanted to help her by making biscuits because she was scheduled to go to church that night, and Jill refused. But it wasn't like an argument that the papers portrayed it to be.
She packed a backpack, got on her bike, and then left.
Maybe it was because it was a Wednesday night and she was very close to her father, Tom Robinson, who lived in Birmingham and was an English professor. And maybe it was because the Wednesday night that he was supposed to take the girls, for some reason, he wasn't going to take the girls. Whatever it was, Joe refused to make the biscuits, and Carol, who had a boyfriend at the time, says that the boyfriend had suggested maybe you should take a different tact with Jill. Maybe you should tell her to, step outside and think about things as opposed to, trying to play the nice cop, I guess.
I haven't seen her since, and I wasn't really very worried for an hour or so because she's very stubborn, and I thought she'll stand in the next yard and think about it, or go around the block or something, and then I thought maybe
She's old enough to smash.
And so I wasn't very
Oh
concerned
wait,
for a couple
no.
hours, and then I got
Let me get that. This was in 1976. She wasn't born in 1976. My bad. Oh fuck, I got that all wrong.
in the car and drove around and tried to find her, and that's when I called the police.
Has she ever done anything like this before?
No, never.
Stop doing that.
This is where it gets hard. Okay, so then I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Okay, I'm not gonna cry. But anyways, so she becomes missing off of her bike. Just a timeout.
Jill had pedaled off into the night. She'd gone to the garage and pulled out her purple bike. Actually, it was her mother's bike, and rode off into the night.
Her father lived some distance away. So what she did is she packed a backpack, got on her bike, and then left. And that is the last anyone had ever seen of her. Her mother noted that she never arrived at her father's. Her father's was very quick to report she never arrived as well.
I was the last one to see her. I said, Jill, where are you going? She said, none of your business. Her and my mom had a little argument, and so I don't know, she was trying to get on her bike and go. And I'm the one that was the last one to see her, and I had to go out to the shed to look for her bike because my mom was gone to work or something. And so I had to go out and look, and her bike was gone. So my mom called back, and she's like, is Jill's bike there? And I'm like, no, it's not. It's missing. She's missing. She's gone. So we figured that she went to my dad's house, which was down the road on Woodward to Birmingham.
She was considered a runaway. Well, a missing child in this atmosphere is very alarming, and there was some talk in the community about this girl that was missing.
So I think that she went to my dad's, which was like 5 miles down the road, 6 in Birmingham. And she was last seen somewhere along the way at Tiny Tim's hobby shop or whatever that was called, I don't even know. And so she was sort of last seen there. They did recover her bike later on, and I don't know, but I don't even know if she made it to my dad's or not, or it was on the way back because he wasn't there, but it seems like she would have waited. If she got there, she would have waited. So I feel like she almost never made it there, and my dad never saw footprints in the snow or anything.
I thought somebody found Jill. It's okay.
Mrs. Robinson is especially worried because today, Christmas, is something that Jill was really looking forward to. She had saved enough money from her allowance to buy gifts. Gifts that still remain unopened.
She was missing from December 21st, and then they found her the day after Christmas.
The day after Christmas, somebody driving down I-75 saw something red in the ditch, and it was Jill. Within, full view of the Troy Police Department right there on the Big Beaver exit.
I remember, we couldn't open our presents. We didn't open our presents. We were waiting. She was gone. It wasn't even a Christmas. I don't even know what I got. Doesn't matter.
I wonder if you hate Christmas now. I mean,
But, the day after Christmas, I was there when the cop came to the door and said, your sister's been shot in the head and found in the middle of I-75 in Big Beaver. And I remember my mom just reacting and being, how do you react to that? So, very sad and hard. It was just like, she's gone, and she's gone, and they found her and shot in the face. My sister had premonitions that she was going to die. She knew she was going to die. She was born in the 12th month and died in the 12th month, and she was 12 years old. So 12 is a special number for me that I hold sacred to my sister.
When the police came to the door, Carol said that Jill had had a premonition that she was going to be shot.
So they said that she was, shot in the face and her body was found. And it's unbelievable to me that someone doesn't know something about her whereabouts from those days that she was missing, because how can you just kill a 12-year-old in the middle of a very busy intersection and no one knows anything? How can that be? So, I don't know.
Do you know that one of the headlines in the Free Press when Jill's body was found was "Runaway Girl Found"? Just the impact of what that did to Carol Robinson. I just wanted to remind you of that.
Oh, no wonder.
She was awesome. She was so awesome. She was just very, sort of withdrawn, but we used to play Charlie's Angels, and we went to camp together. I mean, how much recollection can I have, because she was like 3.5 years older than me, and I was 9 when she died, 9.5. But the whole thing is, we totally were best friends and had a lot of fun together. And she was very headstrong, and she was not stupid, and she was very book smart. She read a lot of books, liked our cat, and just had a lot of fun. She was withdrawn a little bit and quiet, but I think it's because she had these premonitions and knew she was going to die, and she was killed in a different way than the other ones, but somehow they linked her together with the other ones. And my dad was very reclusive and very upset, and it affected him greatly. Of course, my mom too. My little sister was not so much in the loop because she was so young, but Jill was my best friend, and so that totally affected me. My mom took her to a child psychologist because Jill was having these premonitions that she was going to get shot. And so my mom was like, "Jill, no one gets shot when they're 11 years old. What are you talking about? This is weird. It's not right." And so she was seeing a child psychologist. That's all I really know. But her dreams came true, which aren't even, those are nightmares, not even dreams. I feared for my children's safety till they were 12 years old. And once they made it past 12 years old, I was so excited that they lived.
That's pretty fucked up.
Number for me, but also a good one at the same time. It's hard to explain.
I knew I had a great news story here, and I went on the air in our next newscast and did the story about the Oakland County child killer. It was the first time, I think, that anyone had ever uttered those words in our area. Little did I know that this wouldn't be the last one.
It will be a week tomorrow since Christine Mihalik disappeared while coming home from this store. In those 6 days, the community has come to realize that a missing child in this area is not merely the problem of the parents. Most of those out collecting funds today have families also.
Yeah, sure.
I can remember riding our bikes. At the time, it seems like it would have been behind all of the storefronts there on 12 Mile on the north side. I think they maybe had like alleys and parking lots by them. And I remember riding our bikes with the neighborhood kids throughout that particular area. And really, that's about it. And a few other memories that we had at our family cottage up north. I only have one memory that I recall from when she went missing, and it would have been my grandmother and I were laying in bed watching TV, and I remember seeing the news flash coming up with her picture in terms of missing, and the news channels asking if anyone had seen her. And I remember asking her, you know, why is Chris's picture on TV? I couldn't figure that out, and I'm sure my parents probably did not tell me essentially, you know, what was happening, and if they did, it certainly didn't recollect in my thoughts in terms of what was happening in terms of the scenario.
She disappeared on January 2nd, 1977. She vanished from Berkeley.
Christine Mihalik, who was 12, called her mom because she wanted to walk up to the 7-Eleven to purchase a teen magazine and a candy bar. And her mom said, okay, but be very careful. It was 3:30 in the afternoon.
I have witnesses. The clerk at the store remembers seeing Christine, described her to the police, remembered that she had bought a teen magazine and some candy. And I found other witnesses, kids that bowled at this bowling alley, that knew Christine personally and said that they had seen her after that walking east on 12 Mile from the 7-Eleven carrying a paper bag.
The money is being used for reward for apprehensions of persons or persons who are holding Christine. If it's not used within a year, if anyone should ask, the money will be turned over to the City of Berkeley for crime prevention against children in the City of Berkeley, and this is Chris's family's wishes. Okay. Thank you very much and good luck.
I think it's worthwhile. We have to find the girl. We need information to find the girl, no matter what the situation is, and that's why I'm here. I think this is the only way we can do it.
So she was last seen, that what we know of from this witness, at the Dairy Queen across the street is where she was observed.
Christine's grandfather, whose name is Bill Bell, and one of Bill Bell's very good friends was Lee Williams, Detective Corey Williams' father, who was also a Berkeley cop.
I knew about it as a young man. I lived in Berkeley, grew up in Berkeley in the 70s. My dad was a Berkeley detective. He grew up with Bob Bell, who was Christine Mihalik's grandfather. I remember when I was 15 years old, in January 1976, our family received a phone call in the evening, and it was Bob, Christine's grandpa, looking to speak with my dad.
And he called and said, Christine is missing. And by this time they knew. They knew there was a predator out there.
And so my dad went down to the Hartfields bowling alley where Christine's mother worked, and they all three met and discussed what needs to be done. And obviously he got Berkeley police involved. My dad had retired from Berkeley police and had just gone to work for Brooks Patterson at the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office as a detective.
So it's interesting because Detective Corey Williams can remember that phone call, his father getting that phone call and, you know, talking in hushed terms about just calm down. And that he ends up working on the same case his father did.
My dad since passed away in 1999. I never got to really talk to him about this case. I wasn't working it yet. And so I'm not clear on how involved he was in the investigation of Christine, but I have to believe, working for Brooks Patterson at the time of the Oakland County child killings, that he had some role in that as well.
Christine was kept for 19 days. I thought it was just so poignant that her mom said, Deborah Jarvis said the reason she was kept for 19 days is because they so enjoyed her company because she was such a sweet
19 fucking days.
Her body was found 19 days later in Franklin Township, partially buried in a snowbank.
Later found at Bruce Lane in Franklin, Michigan, which 13 in Telegraph area, dumped in the snow, and I believe a mailman spotted her body that day she was found.
It's just a place that you can't go and think about where she would have been for 19 days and what she would have gone through. I just simply can't go there. My parents divorced when I was very young, so it would have been late 1976 that my parents divorced. And so at that time then, you know, my mom was married to Dan Mihalik and had my sister Chris, Matt, and Mark. They divorced, then my mom married my dad. So we had different fathers, same mother. So when my parents divorced, that is how and why I went to live with my father, as I was his only child, and the other 3 kids stayed with my mother. So with that being said, you know, I primarily lived with my dad, and there isn't a time that I can remember in my memory that my dad didn't always vocalize that the police knew who did it, because their line of questioning did not make sense. And he had many run-ins with Brooks Patterson at the time and different law enforcement over the course of those 19 days and thereafter, in terms of after she was found. And they basically told him, don't be poking and prodding in our department because you're not welcome here.
The medical examiner found no gross evidence of molestation, but there was an interesting note that I found in reviewing one of the reports. Claimed that Dr. Shirley, who was one of the medical examiners at the time, indicated that he found seminal fluid in the rectal area. But again, that wasn't logged in later on, and there was no other notes for that.
We know the boys were raped, but the girls weren't. There was some discussion and discrepancy back then as to whether Christine was violated.
Very, very seldom do you have victims, like boys, being abducted by somebody that's going to abduct girls. That doesn't happen.
My brother was suffocated. Jill Robinson was killed with a shotgun blast to the face.
God damn.
And Christine Mihalik, I'm not sure exactly how they terminated her. Or Timothy King, I think he might have been asphyxiated also. But the 2 boys were sexually molested, but not the girls.
Was it a decoy in terms of trying to throw off law enforcement, that they are not wanting to only have it be susceptible to boys in order to create confusion, if you will? And so that's the only thing that I can come back to. But also, though, boys had long hair in the 70s. Jill Robinson had a haircut that was quite similar to a boy's.
These kids were, looks like they were abducted or drawn in off the street. So they're wearing winter clothes, winter jackets, you know. As we start approaching winter here in Michigan, you know, when everyone's bundled up, it's a little difficult to discern a man from a woman, a young boy from a young girl.
And what many people don't know is that Chris had also recently had a haircut. So the pictures that are out there in terms of what the media used in the 70s, she had long hair. However, it had recently been cut short right before her abduction.
The Southfield Police Department, a task force was formulated. There were approximately 35 detectives from the following departments participating: Troy, Ferndale, Southfield, Berkeley, Royal Oak, Bloomfield Township, Birmingham, Oak Park, Franklin, Oakland County Prosecutor's Office, Oakland County Sheriff's Department, Michigan State Police, and the FBI. These 35 investigators from those agencies have formed a task force primarily to investigate and solve the Mihalik homicide.
There's kind of this idea that a task force is an official creation with some type of documentation or proclamation. It isn't. It is an agreement that various investigative agencies will cooperate together, share information, share resources. And this particular task force was reconstituted after the prosecutor was elected in 2009, and it was going back to the agencies that had either the victim disappeared in or the body was found, and it was a simple question. One, do you have resources that you can dedicate to us, to this investigation? And two, are you willing to put those resources to this investigation? And the answer in each and every case was yes. And it has led to, for example, re-examination of the physical evidence, a reevaluation of how the evidence was stored, a reevaluation as to the reports, as to how the reports are kept, our access or ability to access this information. So it's been a serious effort to find real evidence.
I stayed and played pool and let him go home by himself. And I beat myself up for a long time because of that.
In my times that I've been living since she died in 1976, I've had about 4 dreams where she's visited me, and that's all. I'd be like, Jill, is that you? And she's like, yeah, it's me. And she's fine. She doesn't give me a whole lot of explanation or doesn't blame anybody or doesn't talk about anything. It's just she's there and she's fine. One time she just wanted to meet my son and my daughter, and so they were in my dream too. And so, I don't know, she just wanted to just kind of contact me and be like, hey, I'm here, I'm okay. She's never asked for any revenge or any resolution. She's just there saying hi.
I just think the turmoil was too great, and who could process what had just happened, and then to continue to see then another case in terms of Timmy King. So I think everyone tried to just make the best of what we had left and move forward with life and not dwell on it, because it certainly wasn't going to bring her back.
I thought somebody found Jill. It's okay.
It's, you know, time's ticking, and I want this to be solved. But none of my family wants to talk about it because it's painful, and also, I don't know, are we ever going to get any resolution? We don't know.
We received our call from Livonia stating a body had been found and that the clothing description was similar to that of our missing boy.
State and local police say they have no one man under suspicion yet, but they think he lives and works in Oakland County, is a trusted member of the community, and not just some ragged loiterer offering candy to kids.
Every member of the task force feels that someone has to know outside of the guilty individual, has to be aware of the facts and circumstances, maybe of not all of the crimes, but certainly of one.
My dad was traveling for work at some point. This would have been in the 80s. And he sits down and he, was on the airplane and he sees the tie tack that this individual has on. And my dad says, "Oh, you must be with law enforcement." He says, "Yeah, I work for the DOJ out of Washington and, here in Oakland County doing a little bit of work." My dad starts telling him the story about the case and whatnot. And this individual with the DOJ looked at my dad and just point blank said, "You know what? You got a bunch of sick motherfuckers in Oakland County, and it is one of the wealthiest counties, and all I'm going to tell you to do is pay attention and watch your back."
Yeah. Fuck. It's like, I want to watch more, but why am I orange? Why the fuck am I orange? I'm still red. Oh, no, I'm not. Maybe I am. Bro. Zippity, fuck you. First of all, you send me a synopsis, knowing I'm gonna go see a little more into this, and what do I fucking find? A 5-part docuseries. And I'm like, fuck, I want to sit here and watch the other 3. But earlier I said I just wanted to watch 2. And then I ended up playing this one, and fuck. Make y'all wait. Like, I'm gonna wait. Or am I not gonna wait? Well, this will be continued in maybe 2 other parts. And then maybe we'll get into a little conspiracy and how the SF dude, his little manifesto / letter, both of them, kind of may or may not understand some of that a bit, but how he feels and what he's seen. Oh, yeah. Anyway. Not telling y'all how to think, because that would just be completely insane, and you would sound like a fucking complete retard because, well, yeah. Just telling y'all to think. Remember. What is the thing they say? I forgot the bumper sticker, guys. Fuck, I knew I was going to forget it.